The town of Farmington. Respecting history, planning the future.
I'd like to call the meeting to order and please ask you to rise to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to, before we begin, just give you a little information about this meeting. This was a special meeting called for the town council, and the reason for the special meeting was the information that we got last Thursday, which was that we were going to be cut in our ECS grant, which is the Educational Cost Sharing Grant for the schools, close to $700,000. It was $665,999, I believe. So that was quite a surprise to us. I think we're here today not because we'd like to be. We all were very pleased with the way the budget turned out. Some a little not everybody so pleased, but I think we did a very good job coming together with the schools, and we really, in good faith, had a budget that we felt addressed the needs of the town and that we would move forward with. And we're really not happy at all to be here tonight to discuss what the future will be with this $665,000 cut. What we have done is we have asked Kathy, our town manager, and Joe to look at all of the grants and see if there are any other changes in any of the grants from that time until today, and to look at what they think we can what they think we're going to be looking at with this round of decisions and cuts with the governor's cut for this piece of the budget, knowing full well that there's still another $370 million out there to cut, we think, in the next couple of months, or maybe the next month. We hope they're done by May 4th, but there's still a lot looming out there. So we've asked them to look into what changes have happened since then so that we can talk about what we feel we need to do as a council to address this at this time. So just so that you know that this is an informational meeting, we're going to talk about our thoughts as well, but there won't be any motions made during this time until we take up the actual, we'll have the public hearing on the budget in our 7 o'clock meeting, and then talk about how we're going to resolve or how we're going to take any action on anything. Now we're going to talk about what the possibilities are and what our thoughts are, but no motions will be made till our 7 o'clock meeting, just so you know that, so you're not wondering, okay? So at this time, I'd like to ask for any public comment, and please come up to the podium and you can give your public comment, and please give us your name and your address. And 5 minutes, sorry.
Good evening, everyone. Beth Kittner, 24 Farmstead Lane. Didn't think I'd be back here in this spot. I don't think you expected it either. Things are a mess at the Capitol right now in Hartford, and we know that. We're certainly aware of that. And they have some hard work to do on their end, too, to fix the mess or attempt to do that. But as you know, Farmington has its house in order, and we do such a good job of maintaining services and being very fiscally responsible and running a top-notch municipality here. We have a lot going on for us here in Farmington, and that's thanks in no small part to many generations of locally elected officials like yourselves who've worked so hard and diligently for the betterment of Farmington, and so I want to thank you for that, and I know that you have some tough decisions ahead of you, yet again. My concern today in thinking about how you might look at resolving the possibility of these state cuts that have been proposed is that I'm just not sure that the citizens of Farmington should suffer because of what's going on in Hartford right now. And I know we need to take some of the brunt of that, and that's just a practical reality. But at least in terms of our locally controlled services, our schools, programs, and infrastructure, I think we want to be real careful about how we go about looking at that in the solution. So again, I know you have difficult decisions, and I know that this has been weighing on all of your minds, and we have staff and personnel working very hard on it over the past few days as well. So in looking back at cuts that were a part of the budget process back in March, we know that the education budget took a sizable hit in its operating budget. And each year, requests for capital improvements go unfunded, and I have been looking around with wider eyes as I go into the school buildings these past few weeks, and I think our classrooms and our school buildings are really, they're showing for it. So I'm concerned about further reductions in this area that might happen at some point this evening to capital projects, particularly in the schools, but townwide. So I'm not sure if, just in terms of the public, if they understand what all the options are. I know you're fully aware of what your options are, but I think a combination of resolutions, such as cuts recommended by the town manager and the superintendent, perhaps a slight increase in the tax rate, nothing crazy, at or below the level that was originally proposed in the recommended budget when we were here back in March, and perhaps a small reduction in the fund balance to kind of make sure that it's not one area that's drastically impacted in the resolution of this. So the $666,000 that you're looking at needing to discuss and make a decision of, and I want everyone in the public to know too that it's a proposal, and I think it's good to be cautious and conservative in that, but it is a proposal, and I would just hope that there's some assurance that if we end up in a better situation than we're thinking might be tonight, that there's a way for any cuts that you may make, whether it's in services, operating, capital, that those can be restored so we don't end up worse off than we thought we were going to be in March. So that's my main concern. Thank you again for your time, and good luck with your decision making.
Thank you, Beth. Other comments?
Hi, good evening. Sarah Burns, 3 Hidden Spring Lane. Without my children tonight, like a luxury. They're not in the back. Like, making sure I have to make them behave. So I sort of was certainly dismayed when I heard the news from Hartford. It's frustrating. I know for those of us who have tried to get engaged in the process and, thought that it was starting to come to a conclusion anyway, the budget process, and hoping that, our next idea could be, or the next step would be to educate people on the budget as it's been proposed and think about the referendum moving forward, and yet here we are. So I'm sure you all are as dismayed as we are, and I'm sorry we're kind of all back in this position, but I echo a little bit of what Beth said, in that I know that there were a lot of us that came out in March and said, please support the Board of Education budget at the full amount at which it was presented. It was cut. We watched what the Board of Education cut. We're a little dismayed, or I shouldn't say we. I was a little dismayed. I don't want to speak for everybody. By things like school supplies that had to be cut and technology that's having to be cut. And there was a part-time reading recovery teacher that had to be cut. This is a research-based program that we know really helps the kind of most struggling, some of those really struggling students in our schools. So these are things already that the Board of Education has had to cut that directly impact students in the schools. And so my dismay upon hearing more cuts is the idea that, that we're going to have to go back both on the town side and think about cuts on the town side and also the Board of Education side, where I feel like we've already had some cuts that were made that really kind of directly impact our students. So I know you all have a big charge ahead of you, but I'd really kind of urge you to think creatively about ways we can do this, perhaps without making kind of additional really drastic cuts that are going to, either on the town side or the Board of Education side, that are going to kind of really impact the quality of life here in town and the quality of our schools here in town. So thank you for all your hard work. Thanks for what's coming up, and we look forward to hearing kind of how it all turns out. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Other comments?
Good afternoon. Excuse me. My name is Paul Kicks. Here we are. I live with my wife Sonia at 53 Garden Street. We have a daughter, Harper, in first grade, at Noah Wallace, and twin boys, Marshall and Walker. who will start kindergarten there next year. Hard decisions reveal character. When a town council must weigh those decisions, nothing less than the ethos of a community shows itself. What that community values, what it hopes for its future. In the past, Farmington has been a place that values its schools. It's the reason my wife and I moved here 5 years ago. In fact, the lone reason my wife and I moved here. We could have lived anywhere else in the community. So for me, and I'd go so far as to say, for all the parents that have come here tonight, the choice you now face perhaps isn't quite as difficult as it might at first seem. As Beth said just a minute ago, we do have options. In lieu of cuts, all of them are reasonable. You could raise taxes, which sounds untenable perhaps to this council until it considers that Farmington's mill rate of 25.78 stands well below other communities that have quality schools. Avon Mill's rate rests at 28.8, Canton's at 29.9, Simsbury's at 37.2, West Hartford's at 38.11. To offset a further $600,000 cut to the school budget, a modest tax rate seems not only politically doable but quite reasonable, especially when the town council considers that the schools themselves are the reason many people decide to live here. If you want to stay away from a tax increase, I'd like to echo what Beth said just a minute ago. You could reduce the town's fund balance. If this affects the town's AAA bond rating, I say so be it. A reduction from AAA to AA can be made up in a short amount of time. You guys know exactly that length of time, but I'm a journalist and I've covered town councils, town budgets in my life, and I've seen how these things can move from one year to the next, and hopefully the same could be said for Farmington moving forward from this fiscal budget in this year to next year. There's a difference, I think, between being financially solvent, which is always very good, and perhaps being driven by one's ideology, exclusively by one's ideology. If you cut further from the school budget, you will be gutting what makes this town great and makes an overwhelming number of people here. If you cut, it will make an overwhelming number of people here question why exactly they chose to live here in the first place. I was one of the 15 parents who spoke on a Saturday morning last month when the council considered approving the school board budget as proposed. Each of us, all of the 15 parents, argued that not a penny should be taken from that budget. But this council cut nearly $350,000 from it. One of the cuts was very dear to me, the elimination of a part-time teacher who worked in reading recovery, a program from which my daughter has benefited profoundly in the last year, moving her from one of the worst readers in her class to the best. I hesitate. In fact, I choose not to even think at all about what the damage a subsequent $600,000 cut could have on the schools we all cherish. I urge this conservative-minded council to look at the parents gathered here and to consider as well something that perhaps isn't always shared in polite company, which is that there are more registered Democrats in this town than Republicans. This town will not stand for much longer for cuts to education. If you persist in ignoring the public's pleas, come next November, the jobs you might be eliminating might very well be your own. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Other public comment? Okay. At this time then, I'd ask Kathy if you and Joe could, yep, and we can get some information about where we stand. So I'll begin by just saying that we know that last Thursday, as we said before, we received information that we were cut by 665 or thereabouts dollars from ECS. And since then, you've had some conversations with our representation, and I've had conversations with them as well, and others of us may have as well. But I'm looking to ask you and Joe what kinds of things you found out since then have transpired in any other grants or in any other places in the budget that you can bring to us.
Sure. Why don't we start, if everyone pulls out their budget that's in their budget book, or there's copies back there too, so we can all sort of be on the same starting place. And if we can go to, on the first page, the general fund revenue.
Was it in the packet, Kathy?
Yes,
Yes.
it's in the packet.
It's
It's actually the
this one?
action item. Yeah, exactly.
For everybody, anyone out there that's looking, and it's the second page in. Okay.
I'll catch you.
Does everyone know where we are? So if we're going on the second page, the state and federal grants, there's copies in the back if anyone needs any. So if you're looking at the state and federal grants, you could see our total. It's the town council proposed for the state and federal grants is $6,350,171. So we all know where we are there? And if you look at this page, which is your tax and budget worksheet, you can see in state and grants, going down where it says grants, you're talking at $6,350,171. Those were where those two numbers correlate. On Friday, we received some information about our education grant. And our education grant, if you go down again on this page, you can see we have budgeted $1,608,846. So this is the number that we're going to be talking about tonight. Is this where the big concern is? But before we even just get into that, a couple things I just wanted to talk about a little bit is that what we're going through right now and what this process is, this is the same process that Joe, Erica, and I do in March. This is not that unusual. The state is always cutting and they're doing different things. And as we talked about in March, we underestimate some of our funds. We do different things so that we don't have to be back in this situation in April because we don't want to do this. It's not good for the community. It's not good for us. But what happened this time around is that for the education grant, there was no indication that the education grants were going to be touched. It was, if you read it in the paper, it was called the sacred cow. It was called the sacred cow. So first of all, we made no adjustment to our education grant. So we made no adjustment to it. And then what also has happened, what we found out on Thursday, is that Farmington, we call is a hold harmless town. And what that means is that based on a formula, we receive grant funding. And according to the state, we are receiving more than what we should be getting because of our formula. Okay, so we are receiving $1.6 million, and that is 168% of what we should be receiving. That's what the formula states. And we can't go back and forth, we've argued back and forth that the formula is not right and this, that, and the other thing, but according to them, it's 168%. So what happened, and what our new numbers showed, is that all these towns that were hold harmless are no longer going to be held harmless according to this proposal. So instead of 168%, we're going back to 100%. And that 100% number is $954,560. So that's the new number that they worked off of. Plus, as you've read probably in the paper, they've said they were going to take an extra % off. So most communities were going to get, if they were going to get 100% funding, and then they were getting minus 1%. On our case, because we're a hold harmless town, we went from 168% to 100 and then lost another %. And that brought us to $945,014, which is a reduction of $65,999. So even with some of the adjustments that we've made in our other grants, I can't say to the council that it's a good idea to put us in the hole this type of money in going into next year. It's just not feasible. We're not going to be able to catch up, even some of the other things we've said. So this is why, you know, we expected maybe a 1 or 2% loss of revenue. That's what everyone was saying. And we were at about 13% with these numbers. So it's considerably different than what we thought. What we've done since Thursday is that we've tried to find out, is this information going to, it's a proposal, is this still a sacred cow? Are they really going to touch it? And really the big thing is that about this hold harmless. Are they going to keep towns at 100%? Because that's really what's killing us, is that jump from 168 to 100%. So what we do usually in March, we look at all our grants, we look to see what we propose and not propose. And we talk to our state representative, our representatives, we also talked to Senator Bai. We had a long conversation with her. And the bad news is that they do think that the education is going to be, they're going to touch education. So the bad news is that is going to happen. The good news is that all indications is that they're not going to be as drastic as what they said. That they don't think that it's going to go from 168 to 100%. So we've looked at that. We've also looked, if you go in our state thing and you look at our pilot, our state-owned pilot property, and one of the things that happens with our grants is that, and this is why it's kind of a difficult process, is that because the state says you're getting the money, doesn't necessarily mean we get the money when the next year comes around. So for instance, this year, we are still missing close to $700,000 of expected revenue, and that has not come in. Now, we actually don't think we're going to get the full 700, but we didn't budget for the full 700. We think we're going to actually get less than that. But my point is that because they say you're getting it and it gets settled, and that's the budget, many, many times you don't get the same amount of what they said. That said, sometimes you get more, but the numbers, what I always say with our representatives is that I always work on our actual and what we actually get. And I like to look at somewhat the bottom line and what we get all together. So anyway, with the discussion today, we think that what usually happens is that they have to find the money somewhere, and what usually they do is they usually take it out of the pilot. They find more money in the pilot. That's our history. That's what happens. We have reduction in our pilot. If you look at our number, it says it's 4.79%, but that's from money that it's budget to budget. It's not really a reduction of what we think we're going to get. So what we think we're going to get we think is going to be less than that. So Joe and I and Erica met today, and really what we think would be a conservative but realistic number is that on that pilot, we take out another $73,000 out of the pilot, and on the education grant, another $427,000 instead of the $660, $427, for a total revenue change of about $500,000. And where we are coming from that is where the 73 is just, I think, Joe, was just a percentage that we decided. We did a percentage there. And on the education, how we backed out the 660 is that we're under the understanding that 125% is probably the worst case scenario, whether that is or not, but that's what they think is 125%. So that's where we got the $427,000. So instead of a $670,000 reduction in revenues, we think, best guess, conservative, around $500,000 between the pilot and the ECS grant. So that's our logic. And again, Joe, I look to Joe, he's been doing it a long, long time. We've had years that are different than this. This is not that much different than most of our years, except for we just weren't aware. We didn't do this early the first time because we didn't know. But this is what we would have done in March if we had known what the ECS was going to be touched. We would have had this kind of discussion, and these are the numbers we would have probably have come back with, $500,000. So I think we also have not funded, we still have half a grant here. It's called the MRSA grant, which is the Revenue Sharing Sales Tax. That's $241. We're slated to get $500, I think, on that one, or $486. It's half of that. We're recommending not keeping that because that still gives us a little bit of a buffer too. And so if the worst case scenario with the ECS grant doesn't go 125%, it goes 110 or something like that, that still gives us some stuff. And, our position is it's always easier if you get the money, that it comes in. You guys have a lot more options than us halfway through a year not getting the money and really having drastic measures to try with our expenditures and our revenues not balancing. So I think that $500,000 is a pretty good number. So that's where we're at.
And right now, this year, and by this year I mean 15, 16,
The one we're
the
living
current
in.
year
Yeah.
we're in,
Yep.
we're still waiting for $700,000 in April from July.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's something that it's just,
We're
as you said.
concerned about it, but we still have indications that it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
We have indications that money is coming. We hope we're wrong. We don't believe it's the whole 700, but we believe that money is coming.
Kathy, is it typical this time of year to have certain monies outstanding? I mean, you guys have done this for many years before.
Not-
Is it typical to hit April and have still waiting for 700,000 or a portion?
No, usually by this time of the year, the only grant that's not paid out is actually the one we're talking about today, the educational cost sharing grant. That gets paid in 4 payments. Actually, that gets paid in 3 payments, and the third payment is made in April. So that would come at this point. The one that Kathy's referring to, the 700,000, it's a relatively new grant. It's been out there about 3 years now. And there's no provision in the statute as to when it gets paid.
Okay.
But the past few years, or since its inception, it's always been paid in February. So obviously, February's long gone. It has not been paid yet. We did, CCM actually made reference to it, and they're making inquiries as to why it has not been paid yet, what's going on with it. And they have not heard anything back from the state.
Have we heard anything from Senator Bai, for instance, or
Well,
on that
they've
particular one?
they've indicated that these payments are coming.
Okay.
Yeah, they've indicated that they're coming. So, like I said, we have yet to really feel like because we're going to be $700,000 in the hole with the budget.
Right.
So we have not taken any real measures because of that, because we still feel confident at this point, as of today, that money is going to be coming to us. At least a portion of the money is going to be coming to us.
And then if you read the newspaper, more cuts are coming for the year we're talking about tonight. The 73,000 that you anticipate would be cut from the pilot, is that your guess of our portion?
Yeah, that's a guess.
I mean, we need to do educated guesses, but you think that's where it's going to be pulled from? So I know this is
Yeah, it's
like
educated
reading
guess.
tea leaves at this moment, but.
Well, I could share some conversation I had last Wednesday when the
Please.
ECS grant reduction came out. I said, it's not going to happen because that's a sacred cow to the governor. The governor has stated several times it's not going to happen. And since that time, in conversations, I've heard that probably will happen. At the same time, I know it's been stated publicly by the legislative leaders that the revenue sharing, what they call the MRSA grants, are what I would call their babies. They're grants
sacred
that-
cows.
Yeah, that's their sacred cows. So you would say, okay, those are protected. The one, I guess nobody's sacred cow really would be the pilots at this point.
For the pilots.
And that's our funds.
Pilots, and some of the legislative leaders have actually said that. So I think when all is said and done, that you're probably, if there's additional reductions coming, they're going to be to the pilots.
Right. And what we always try to do, and Joe is definitely, I think, an expert on some of this, is that we look at each of them individually, and we do our best guess based on history and everything like that, but our ultimate goal is by the end, we're getting close to what
Right.
that bottom line was.
It should be a block grant.
Yeah.
And this should be one, and
Yeah.
this,
Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's a little less, and all these other grants are different, and then they change their names, and they do X, Y, and Z. But by the end, we try to get that bottom line as close as we can. And that's why we do some of the pilot, we do some of this, we do some of the education if we knew, just to master. But I think that every indication is it's not getting better. But that said, I think that the fact that our initial cut because of that hold harmless was so drastic in comparison to other towns, I think they're going to help us back a little bit from that, because that was going from 168 to 100, and we're not the only town that
Right.
had that type of a movement. I think they're going to push that back a little bit and help towns that, and like I said, I think we've heard maybe 125%, so that will help us.
is there any discussion, I mean, their rationale was, we haven't been applying the formula correctly all these years, and now we are going to apply the formula and make it fair. Is there any discussion of touching the formula, or going forward, we're going to be sticking with this, and
They've been trying to talk about this formula
I know.
for 30 years, but I think one of the things, the last time, my understanding is where they really tried to make some changes to the formula, that's when we got the hold harmless, is because that
didn't
was.
fix it, they just held it harmless.
Yeah, they tried to make a change to that, so.
Well, they changed the formula and then said, okay, we're going to change the formula, but we're not going to reduce any town's grant.
Right.
So they made us whole by those funds, but then the situation changed in town so that the formula itself, it doesn't apply anymore, so.
Right. So-
John Landry, did you want to?
Yeah, just, I mean, speaking to the formula is just not fair by default.
Right.
I mean, but it's, no matter how you look at it, it's just wealth redistribution, and we get the unfair end of it. Going back to the $700,000 that you're talking about, that we're coming up short, did I hear you say that we're not necessarily budgeted to expect that $700,000?
Right.
Can you give me an idea of
I
what
think
you mean by that?
We budgeted, if you look down in your sheet and you see the revenue sharing projects, and you can see that we have estimated at 712,
Yeah,
but if you could see what our revised budget is, 545.
okay.
We budgeted 545, but we're estimated to get 712. And if you remember what this is, and I hope, we may be wrong, and I'd be very glad if we were wrong, but is that last time around, there was another cut in Farmington. There was 4 towns that got or 4 or 6, something got a really significant cut, and our legislators went back and fought to give us an extra $147,000. That is part of that $712,000. But we've gotten some indication just from different things that I'm not sure if that extra lump is going to come. So we only budgeted that 545 last time, so we could get that 712.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Got it.
I think one of the things that, and we'll all have an opportunity to weigh in now, but one of the things that I think I do want to acknowledge that we do have a couple letters from people from the community, and their concern is, and I just want to make sure that everyone understands that we look at everything that comes to us, and everything has an impact. Letters, conversations people have at the stores, and people out in the public. So it's really important that people listen and understand that we listen to people in the community, people that write letters, people that call us on the phone, people that speak at public comment. So it's not just this public comment where people are talking to the counselors about what things they think should happen or should not happen. So I just want to make sure, we do have 2 letters here that came in, and we have them, and we've all looked at them, or will look at them to so that we can make sure everything, we're well aware of all the concerns and of the public that have tried to be in contact with us. So one of the things that I wanted to mention, I think that it's very, that we really have to be concerned about this. I think the fact that we may get more, as Kathy's indicated, than we thought with the 670 or 666 is good news. I mean, it's great to hear that we don't think that that's going to happen fully. I think particularly, and I've been involved for 25 years now. I was on the board in 1991 for a number of years, and then the council. Never, the few days before we've done this budget, have we been sitting in the seat to change this. And so I think that's just just tells how significant the dire straits of the state are. And my concern is that what we do now, and I hope I personally hope we're going to do something. What we're going to do now, I'd like to say this is the last time we're going to be sitting here. I'm not real confident that it will be. We still have a month and a half to go to May, and we were hopeful that by April 18th, which would be before our 25th date, before April 25th, that we would have some indication from the taxes. That was one of the things that I'm sure all of you saw in the paper, that we'd have indication then. Well, now it's the end of the month. So that's another piece to this puzzle of what's happening in the state, what we will or will not have for funds to allocate to towns. So that's going to be a little bit later after our public hearing. And then we certainly have the idea of, again, in the paper and on email and things, of the difference in possibilities of layoffs and what's going to happen to get to the $933 million that has to be cut, which is an additional $360 from what was cut now. So I'd like to say I'm hopeful that the things that, those kinds of things will come in and help us out as a town of Farmington and help the towns out. But I think that's something that we still have to be aware of, and we have to keep our eyes open for, because we may be back here, hopefully not. That said, one of the things I think is important is that even though this is the ECS grant, I don't think that it's up to the schools to take all that brunt on of what may or may not be cut. I think that when we talk about this now, I think that it's certainly something we're going to have to share the pain here. And I'm hopeful that that's something that we can talk about, and we'll ask Kathy about what her thoughts are as far as what in the town and can happen, which won't be as devastating. But I think that people really need to be aware that we want to move things forward as we have with the budget in the past. And but personally, I think we need to take action and do something. So I'm going to ask Kathy in a minute what she thinks, but I'm certainly willing to do something that it's a consideration of doing half, and I think our council members can comment about where they think it should come from. But I don't think it's something, as I said, that the school board needs to bear all that $500,000 at this point. I think that's something we should look at, because we look to to Kathy and to Joe for what they think is reasonable. So I think that's something that we should consider at this point. And I can hear more from my colleagues and see what you think, but I think we need to address it, and I think that's being responsible. So, Meredith?
I have thoughts, but I have a question first.
Sure.
And it's because I think that this situation is so fluid that I'm trying to figure out what would happen in a number of different scenarios. And I think, I agree with Nancy in that we have to do something so that the numbers that we present to the town are in line with current reality. So I don't think we can ignore what's going on in Hartford, and I think we have to be honest with what our fiscal reality is. My question is, what happens if we adjust this budget in one way or another based on a $500,000 number, and then it turns out that our ECS funding in part or in full is restored? Can you talk a little bit about what we do in that case? Where does that money go?
Right.
And how do we revert, I guess, back to our original budget in that case?
I think that's a great question. I think we have to continue to go back, that this isn't any different than what it usually is. It's just the timing is different. So as all of our grants, if we get more money than we have in our document, it goes into the fund balance. That said, the council has the right to redistribute that money after it goes into the fund balance. Over the course of history, we usually have, because we budget conservatively, we usually do have more money than what we've said in the budget, because of the fact that we budget conservatively and it goes into the fund balance. The council at various stages has taken money out of the fund balance for various things and has distributed it to something different. And you absolutely have that right to do that. So,
Even if that were to occur or become known after the referendum?
yes, yes.
Okay.
And again, without getting too much into redistributing money, but what my thought would always be is that, okay, let's just say we do well on our grants and the governor does his budget, or the budget comes out now, and it's by May, and our number is $500,000. We have $500,000 more than we thought. You know, at that period of time, I would hold steady, because we're going into next year and we have to see if we're going to actually get that money that starts coming in. You have to see if you're actually going to get it. But then again, we evaluate different things. We evaluate how we end this year. We evaluate some various things. But I wouldn't want to say, okay, the governor's budget or the budget's approved, and on July 1st, we think we're getting an extra $500,000. Let's take that extra $500,000 and redistribute it right away. You know, I think that you have to again worry about the year we're living in. And the year that we're going to live in next year, whether that money is actually going to come to us,
Right, I just think there's some concern out there in the public that if we adjust this, you know, out of any pot, that would never be able to be recovered, even in the event that our funding was restored. And for me, I would love to just feel comfortable going into this, that we can retain the option to reallocate funds as they may come in. And I think that's important for people to know, that we have that ability.
Right.
If we do.
Yep, you absolutely do. And I think after you guys have a discussion, if you ask what my opinion would be to make that an easier type of an adjustment, and to do that if the council wanted to do something like that, I have some thoughts on how that could work.
And can you speak to the dollar amounts? Is there the restrictions of how much we are allowed to do that with?
And
Joe,
maybe,
you can-
so $400,000 is our referendum question, right? So the one problem is, again, we'll go two ways. One problem is that if you've underfunded your budget to such an extent and you don't get your revenues in, and you can't cut expenses enough to match it, you can't take out of your fund balance $500,000, because you have to go to a referendum to do that. You can go to a town meeting at, I think, 200 or 250, and then 400 for a referendum. So that's another reason, again, why we're here tonight, is that this potential number, is so high that you can't just roll the dice. I would never recommend that, but you can't do it because of the fact that there's a potential that you'd have to go back to a referendum halfway through the year. You would never want to do that.
Right.
But, so that said, but then transferring money, Joe, it's the same rule too. So you could transfer or redistribute up to a certain amount of money, $400,000. And again, we could look at different things depending on how, and it's just for an example. It's not going to happen. But if we got an extra $1 million that came in, whether or not, if you did 3 separate transfers of different projects, instead of saying $1 million into an account, you did 400 for a truck, 600, 400 for this. That you may not have to go to a referendum, because they're 4 different projects, versus taking $1 million and putting it into a lump sum. That would have to go to a referendum, or would have to already be budgeted. So those are the different things.
That helps, because I think the approach that I am more comfortable taking is a flexible one that allows for this to play out a little bit, and that allows for us to readjust if we need to over the next few months.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And I think one of the things that we have to realize is that this is fluid, this process right now, more so than ever before in any years that I've seen. I think that's the way we have to look at this, because we don't know now what the budget's going to be in the state. I mean, and so I think it behooves us to just be open and say, it has to be a fluid process. What we do today, in a month, there may be some changes, good or bad. So I think we have to understand that that could change as these next months go by. And also knowing that whatever happens today, as far as the Board of Ed is concerned, what what decisions we make in regard to the Board of Ed, you don't have to go tomorrow and have a special meeting and make adjustments. You have, the bottom lines will be whatever they are, and that'll go to the town meeting, and then it can unfold, whatever happens, with combinations of capital, of operating, whatever we decide, can unfold as you know better your numbers too. Whether it be insurance, whether it be bids that you get in that you weren't aware of at certain numbers to begin with, that can all be a fluid process, and we can, as the months go on, we can see where that goes. So, but I think, this is something that we haven't done this way before, even though it's something Kathy and Joe do in March. At this time, we haven't. So I think it's really good to talk about all the possibilities and the openness that I think we need to have, and the fluidity in this budget. So, Kathy?
My overall position is that we financially and feel very strongly that I feel very strongly that we should not be approving a budget with a deficit that we know of today that could be $500,000. It's just not financially the way we do business in this town. Other than that, I think it's very fluid. But we really, information that we know as of today, we should act appropriately and act like how we would normally act, even though it's a very fluid situation. But anything else, it's totally would not be why we have our AAA bonding, how we act financially. We can't, because I don't want to be here with you all. It would be a lot easier to say, oh, we hope we're going to do it. But just the numbers are too big. They're too big.
Okay. Peter, you were...
Just one question on this fluidness.
Yeah.
Are we like a couple of months past July 1st, that type of thing, waiting for grant monies and any type of revenue coming in?
Are you talking about the year we're going into?
Yes, exactly.
Well, again, it's now this year, we haven't received a large grant, and we're already in April, so
Right.
that's a concern. Next year, I think, depending on what grants are coming in and how we're doing, there's all various things where it's fluid. But I think what we have to kind of take these in stages with the information that we have. The first thing we have is we've gotten new numbers, so we have to adjust our documents to reflect true numbers. Then the second thing we have to worry about is we have to make sure that we get the grant funding that we're
Right.
living in right now, because if we don't get that relatively soon, we're going to have another special town council meeting, because we're going to have to decide how we're going to come up with $700,000
This year.
So that's a fluid. So we have to take that into consideration. Now, if we get the $700,000 and this budget goes smoothly, and then it's proposed that some of these grants, and we're more conservative, as of July 1st, we can look at that again and say, okay, and then how did we do this year, in the year we're existing?
Right.
How did we do this year? Are we going to possibly be returning some money back to the town? Could some of that be taken in? We haven't had snow. There's some, our April snow didn't help us. But there's things that you're going to look at in July too and say, and again, if we all remember, if things going the way we are, we're only talking $500,000 only. In the whole scheme, it's a $100 million budget here.
Yeah,
So-
I'm just
I'm
trying to
but
put in
you-
perspective some
right.
milestones, some dates,
Yeah.
anything that
Right.
we could, or someone could ask a
Right.
question. It's July 1st.
Yeah.
Where are we standing right now with any revenue, grant revenue monies or anything like that?
Yeah, no, it's great.
There's just too many unknowns,
Knowns.
and we're always holding our breath, waiting for the phone to ring, it seems
Right.
like right now,
Yeah.
to see if it's good news or bad news.
Right. But you know what? Again, depending on how things go, you look at it, it's fluid, and we make judgments on it, and you say, listen, if we've received next year most of our grants and we actually are funded that we were totally off base and we don't need that, then you could say maybe in September or something, you'd say, okay, we could probably do this. Or,
Right, yeah.
we could look at these different things. But
Yeah, if you're talking milestones, probably the first milestone would be September, because the pilot, which is our largest grant, is paid in September. So once that dollar amount comes in, and if it comes in at budget or even over budget, then you have some reassurance.
Yeah.
So really, September is probably your first milestone
Okay,
in terms of what's actually going to take place.
right.
all right. Well, it's just,
Yeah, and
it's
that's a
for,
good
it's
question.
for my mind, maybe others, maybe
Yeah.
people out in the audience here.
Right, and it's, again, it's definitely possible, the council has the absolute right, but we always look and fluid, and we have to remember when we're living in the year, that if you had tons of snow and you had
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, I
Like
get all
last
that,
year,
yeah.
you know, it
There's-
depends.
Yeah,
Right.
so.
What's happening in
Yeah.
our current situation.
Yep. Meredith, you want?
So I guess, you know, in this bizarre context that we're in, I mean, although this was kind of labeled as an education reduction, there's really no parts of me that wants to see our Board of Education bear the entirety of this. There's no way. So, you know, on the other hand, I think one of the public speakers also said, neither should the town. I mean, what is so difficult about this is the town side encompasses public safety and social services, which I think as things play out on the state level become even more important on a local level. Our recreation, our libraries, our roads, I mean, you know, all of that is there on the town side, and even in the town capital, what do we have? We have $400,000 for a high school project. So to hit that hard on the town side is not good either for residents or the schools. So I guess my sense, if we're going to go down any sort of discussion here, is to think about, for me, how you can mitigate any major damage to any one area. And I think Nancy mentioned this a little bit in her remarks, but, you know, if we could share the burden somehow, if we could share it, if we could split it, if we could make sure that we can do so in a way that would not jeopardize any education programming. You know, we could do a scenario where you have some out of capital, some out of operating on both sides. But the thought that it's in my mind is that I think it should be shared. I don't think there's any question in my mind that the schools should take this entire hit, even though the grant is, you know, education in name. That's where I'm headed.
Yeah, I mean, I could give you some thoughts. I could ask you some questions, all of you some questions, and see where you're at, and then I could go from there. You know, one of the things is that if there's an interest of restoring something after this is all said and done, if there's an interest in restoring some of that, I think that the capital is a better place to take the majority of the reduction. And that said, because it's usually a line item of something, you could say, well, we're not going to do a truck, and if we get some money back, we're going to do the truck, and you can just appropriate the money. And so it's not. And the other reason why is, even though we've really tried and we've done a really great job of increasing the capital budget to such an extent, we have just a tremendous amount of capital work going on right now. We just have even though the state is taking with one hand and giving with the other hand, you know, we're getting money from the state to do a lot of projects, and we just got some notice that we are funded for two more road grants. One of them to do Brickyard Road, and the other one to do on
Route 6.
Route 6 by the reservoir up there, some significant work up there. So 2 grants 100% funded by the state. So I guess my point is that even though one of our missions and goals have been really to push on the capital, I think that even if you said the 500 reduction would all come from the capital, you're still meeting your target on capital, and you're still getting a lot of state funding on capital types of things. So if that was part of what your thoughts were, I think I could find you where I would take out on the town side a capital expenditure.
I would love to know.
Yeah,
Okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
so
they're talking.
my thought is that the town hall parking lot, which is in the town hall account, that's a banking of the money of $300,000. That's a section right there of banking. There's 2 reasons for this, my thoughts on that. One is that we're banking the money, which we absolutely should be banking, because we don't put $1 million in, and it's $1 million to do this parking lot. So we have to bank by years. But based on the capacity of the engineering department and the things that are going on in that department, deferring it a year is something that I think is less painful to me than a truck at this point in time. And that said, I get nervous though, because next year I think is going to be tougher, and we're going to need to do that parking lot, and I'm going to need that $300,000 or a portion of it back to do the parking lot.
Remind us then.
Yeah, but a portion of it. So, but between the state with some of their capital, between our capacity in the engineering department, and that we're banking the money, it's deferring something for a year, hopefully.
And it's
So-
deferring not redoing the parking lot, it's deferring contributing to the parking lot fund, is that
Right,
what it is?
right. And, yeah, because the thought would be is that if we got the money this year, we'd push really hard to get it done in the year that we're going into. But I question if we could even do it because of just the capacity. So instead, we just defer it a year and be able to do it.
So if we were talking in the 500,000
Yeah.
of doing half to the board and half to the council,
Yeah.
not council, the town, if we're doing half and half,
Yeah.
what would, that'd be 250 for you?
It would be, yeah, it would be 250 for me, and I have two things. One, the that parking lot. And the other thing is, Joe and I spoke, is that we just got our workers' comp renewal last week, or after, and there's probably a $30,000 savings in there on the town's operating budget. So there's that, if you're going to say 250, there's our 250 right there on the town side.
Just, there's one area that I think I diverge slightly from what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I look at our town as a whole, and I've always looked at our town as a whole. The school, the police, the parking lot, it's big picture. We work as a team. Kathy were probably on the phone, I don't even know how many hours since the news came in, figuring out how, as a team, we can make this work. I don't like arbitrary numbers, 50-50, and treat it like it's somehow that we're at war with each other. I'm hearing, with respect to the 300,000 from Kathy, and Kathy Egan, if I'm wrong, that we have so much wonderful things going on in Farmington from a public works standpoint, that even if you were given this 300,000, realistically, it's not going to happen in this year. So we're going to be banking this money. And I understand that we have a history of banking this money in the town of Farmington, but this $300,000 wouldn't even be used in this tax period. The 30,000 is found money. And I know we're going to talk, in part as a whole, we're going to talk about the Board of Ed too. But to cut something, whether it's a necessary capital thing or operating on the Board of Ed side, just because in principle we have to have a 50-50 share, to me seems a little bit, I'm uncomfortable with it, because I don't look at these as two separate pieces. Farmington is one town, there's 26,000 people, we work together. If there's years that we need help from the Board of Ed, they help us, and vice versa. Our whole medical insurance is tied to that. I just don't like arbitrary numbers. I like to look at it like we work together and we see how we can sort of have the least harm on Farmington generally. And that's my goal tonight, is the least harm on Farmington generally. And this 300,000, I mean, to some extent, the good news is we're getting $2 million from the state to do other things in the town that we really need to do, and that's why we're so busy. So I don't agree with this sort of blind, I come up with a formula, we're going to do it this way. I also find, and then I'll stop talking, since I've been on the council, I look at these grants, and there's 15 of them, I don't even have my glasses on, and it shifts around, and no rational reason from the money we get from the state. I've always been an advocate of a block grant. Give us money, and we'll then be reasonable and responsible in our town and do what we need. So yes, it's called Education Fund at the moment, but honestly, we've moved things out of education into pilot, into other places, and we've talked in years past how really it's from the state standpoint, it's what they're finally giving us. So I just want to look at the town as a whole and try to hold the town harmless, and I'm not comfortable with arbitrary numbers. I want to do what's best for our town. So,
Well, I have to respond to that after you said 50-50. One of the things that I have to say is that I'm not looking at 50-50 just to be there. The ECS grant, it's what's cut. And I'm not looking at just taking the money from the schools. I think and that's my perspective of the town as a whole. We shouldn't just go to the schools and say we're going to take, $660 out of the ECS grant now, because that's where they, so, and I hear that out there. You know, I've heard that the schools are the ones the ECS grants cut. That's where you need to go. The town needs money too, but I don't think that's fair. So mine is a thought of fairness and looking at things. It's not just arbitrary, but it's also listening to public and saying that I don't think it's fair just to take it from the school. So going from, you know, that perspective, I don't, you know, I think of it as balancing. I don't think of it as just
Can I speak
throwing it
to,
out there.
to
Sure.
you as well through you, Madam Chair? Yeah, I guess I take umbrage at the fact that you use the word war.
I
don't
know.
I don't know who's going to war with who. This is an ECS grant. It's education cost sharing grant, and I received 3 phone calls today from people who found out about this and asked questions about it, and all 3 of them want my decision up here to be to take 100% of the money out of the education side. I've put a lot of thought into this, and I agree with what my colleague said earlier that we should, you know, not necessarily take the entire brunt out of the education side. I agree that we are a town. However, we are a town with 2 different budgets. We have a town budget and a Board of Education budget, and there's a reason for that, and we have to think about that. So I'm not sure who's at war, and if you want to, in my opinion, the quote-unquote arbitrary number of 50-50 works to the advantage of the Board of Education, because if we want to use a non-arbitrary split, then 66% would be taken from the Board of Education, and of 33%, and those are estimates of what our budget is, would be taken from the town side. Nobody up here has advocated for that, and that would be a non-arbitrary split. So I, for one, support somewhere in the neighborhood of a 50-50 split. I think the parking lot is a good place to start. I think we should continue to bank the money. If we went 50-50 and it was $250,000 taken out of the parking lot banking, then that would leave it still $50,000, which it sounds like Kathy said we should still be putting some money in there for the following year. So at any rate, I don't think these numbers are arbitrary, and I think it's a good starting place. So, thank you.
John.
So, Joe, I want to go back because I've been on the council long enough to know that this happens every year. Every year, we need to put our budget in place before the state puts their budget in place. There's always a question of how much money we're going to get, and we always try to take reasonable guesses as to what that is. And I don't think we should ignore the messages we're getting, because I think that there is going to be a cut coming, and I think that we have to put in place a way to do that. But when I went back to my notes back in 14, we were having the same discussion, except that the estimates that were coming in from the state were that we were going to get more money than we were expecting. But we did it. We took a conservative estimate, and we put a lower budget in place. And we ended up getting more money. And we took $300,000, by my records, you may have better records, took $300,000 and put it into our savings account. So as we're trying to cover this $500,000, what seems to be reasonable is to take out the extra state money that we took 2 years ago and use that as a starting point. Now all of a sudden, your bogey is $200,000. And $200,000 is something we should take a look at the budgets and find out what's the least priority $200,000 item or items. And whether they're on the school side or on the town side, let the chips fall where they may. But it would seem to me that the first thing we got to do is to use the money, the extra state money that they gave us 2 years ago, and use it to cover the bogey.
Go ahead.
So my perspective on that, and I think you're talking about the reserve fund, correct?
Yes, the savings account.
Is that we are using that, and that's what's contributing to our ability to bond for these projects. I know, there's a sentiment that says, well, let's just pray that Moody's doesn't knock us down, and if they do, we can weather it. And maybe in certain circumstances that's true, but it just so happens that right now we're in the middle of the largest bonded project Farmington has ever seen. We've not, to my knowledge, finished bonding for the water pollution treatment facility. We still have money to borrow for a project that we're knee-deep in. So to knock our bond rating in the midst of something that we can't get out of is going to cost us far more money than the savings that we'd realize here. And I think the second point is that not many people have been to every one of these meetings since we've started in January. And the reality is that Farmington, when Moody's looks at us, we're already down on a number of factors that contribute to our rating, things that we can't control, such as population, industry, that kind of stuff. So this is the one thing that we can control. And I wouldn't want us to take a long-term hit just to walk out of here feeling a little bit better about ourselves, because I don't think we sit up here and make decisions based on who's going to vote for us next time. I mean, can you imagine if that's what we really did? Farmington would be a mess. We've tried to do the right thing for the long game, not the short game. And so, for that reason, I don't think it's smart. Now, certainly, there could be, also, I guess I should say that we've put in motion a major renovation to our high school. If that's something that the residents of Farmington want, again, that's something that we need to sort of preserve our ability to do. Now, John's right in that if this gets worse, that might be an area where we need to look at. If we're $770,000 down this year, if more hits keep coming in the next year, we might need to look at that. And what I don't want to have happen is to go and look at that and have it be gone, used for a situation that we could have otherwise managed without dramatic impact. That's my thought on the reserve fund.
If I could respond to that, I would agree with that if we were going to try to cover this whole amount of money, this whole bogey, with that reserve money. But the bottom line is, back in 2015, the state gave us money not for us to put away in a savings account, but to spend it on our taxpayers. So as long as we keep that within that boundary of that $300,000 bogey, the extra, and then find savings for the rest, I don't think that's going to damage our Moody's rating. And I think it's going to be using that money for exactly the sort of expenditures that the state expected us to do back in 2015. And so it'd be different if we were just sort of always going back to that pot, because I agree it's an important thing to have a good, strong fund balance. But the state didn't give us $300,000 to save it. The state gave us $300,000 to spend it. I suggest we spend it now.
In the meantime, we bonded a $55 million project. That's what happened between then and now.
And we were going up on our Moody's rating because, to begin with, the percentage, because we were lower to begin with. And the fact that that money has gone into our reserve fund is a reason why we're able to get, as Meredith said, what we are. But we were low. And the last couple of years, what they want for getting a AAA rating has increased. So I don't look at that as, I look at that as the state, the money came back, we used it wisely by putting it and keeping it in our reserve, which allowed us to have the dollars we can to bond for these big projects. So I don't look at it, we're not wasting it at all. Joe?
Yeah, two things. One of the unfortunate things about having a metric that says you have to have X%, you should have X% of your fund balance equal your operating revenues is every time your budget goes up, you have to add to your fund balance, because 10% of 90,000 is $9 million, 10% of $100 million is $10 million. So you have to continually add to your fund balance to keep the 10% low. Your budget, as it stands right now, without any changes, is going up $3.7 million. So you have to add $370,000 to your fund balance. The other thing, and this is just a story, and I'm sure people probably have heard enough of these from me, and I don't mean it as a threatening story. I had a rating review this week. In 2 weeks, we're doing a band sale, $35 million. And normally, when you do a band sale, a note sale, and it's all for the treatment plant. Normally, we don't go to rating agencies for notes, but this time, because of the large dollar amount, and because these notes are going to be out there for several years, I did go for a rating. And I was very concerned when I got off the phone, because it's a different rating analyst and it's a different rating process. And to be honest with you, I haven't gone through this in many, many years on a note sale. But the one thing the one comment that really stuck was the analyst said to me, "Oh, yeah, you're a AAA." And so I said, "Well, that means I should get a good rating on this." He goes, "But you're a very low AAA." He goes, as it goes, your fund balance is way low for a AAA town. And it was a very much concern on his part. And he has different standards or variables that he's looking at versus a bond analyst. But the implication to me was that, we're really not a AAA, even though we are a AAA in his mind. And his big concern was we didn't have a large enough fund balance. And one of the other questions we always ask you is, you're going to do these notes for 1 year, so it's $35 million for 1 year. So what happens if the market's closed to you next year? What happens if you have to pay these notes back next year and you can't refinance these because the market won't allow you to? You have enough liquidity in your town to pay these back, or what would be your backup plan? And it was a very good point. I do have a backup plan, but at the same time, we don't have the reserve out there to pay back $35 million. So notes, and I'm not advocating that we do that, but we do need to have a reasonable fund balance out there. I'll get the rating on Thursday, so hopefully I'm going to get the equivalent of a AAA rating on these notes. But again, this is an independent analyst that we never dealt with before. We basically just said, your rating at AAA is very weak, and his primary concern was a low fund balance. So I guess my concern is that one, and I think the other thing is, ever since we started this treatment plant project, we've always thought about building up this fund balance, because in 2019 or 2020, the idea was that we would tap some of this fund balance to help us with that first balloon payment that comes along. So in order to do that and still maintain a 10% fund balance, we still have to build this fund balance up. And now the second complication comes in. Moody's starts to think that our fund balance is inadequate. I'm not saying they're going to drop our AAA, next week or anything, but it's going to be something in the back of their mind if we start pulling back on this fund balance.
And is there a real dollar implication that's attached with that? What is the,
You hear a variety of things. There was an article last week, Middletown became a AAA through Standard & Poor's, and they were throwing out numbers as to what they thought the savings would be for them to do that. It could vary widely. Our last sale, we got a 2.14 for 15 years as a AAA, and we were looking at other towns at 17 years at a 235, a 250, a 275. So we hit the market right, granted, but at the same time, we did get a significant savings because of the AAA rating.
And I definitely am not only in where we are, which is the water treatment plant, but I'm looking ahead to that high school too, which is will probably be larger than the
And it'll be
Revolution.
going on at the same time.
Yeah, we'll go on at the same time, but and the other thing about that is when we do the permanent financing for the treatment plant, whatever it comes out to be, the $57 or $52 million, that will not be rated, because that'll be a loan, technically a state loan. When you go for the high school at the same time, that will be rated. And when they do the rating for the high school debt, they will look at the fact that we just took out a $57 million loan
For the water.
On the Clean Water Fund. So even though that money will not be rated by a rating agency, it will be a factor in when they start rating our other debt that we'll be issuing. And as I told you in January, we'll be going out in the next few months for $5 million for projects that are out there now that are ongoing, besides a high school, besides a treatment plant. So we're continually in the bond market right now, and we need to maintain, based on what I was told, and the impression I came up with the other day, is we need to maintain a good fund balance, because that's one of the things that's, if we start to play with it, start to reduce it, it's going to jeopardize that AAA.
And one of the things, I remember clearly when we had our auditors here, Leslie said that and she was one of them, was that they were already looking at 15% for bond, for reserve accounts. And we were at, I want to say 12, but it was 11 plus, I think, So, clearly that's risen. And there's no way that I would even jeopardize that with all these projects coming on. And it may be that if the state is in dire strait, even more so, which we don't know, and you don't know how that's going to turn out even in May. I'm fearful that we may be back here looking again at something. So even this year or next year, because the state is in such a difficult time right now. So to do this now, when we're looking at, a 3.8% budget for the Board of Education and the town budget that we are, I mean, I think we're in a very good spot right now, and we really, when you look around us at towns, we're doing a good job. And I think something to remember that's so important is that we'd like to stay there, so that if we do have an opportunity at the end of this year, as Kathy mentioned, even with our own budget, or your budget, we know your insurance is not good, so we're not banking on that. But with us as a whole, as Amy said, when we look at the whole picture, with the town and the board at that point, if it's possible for us to taking everything into consideration then, and to look at that as a whole, I'm clearly willing to look and to consider things at that point. So I just don't think we're done now. I think we really have to act responsibly, and that's taking on this 500 ourselves, and not with a reserve, and not also, I'll jump into this, with a tax increase. I'm not looking at doing that at all. I'm looking at doing what we have, suggesting the things from capital and some out of our operating, with some things that I know have developed with both budgets to now. And that's going to happen in the next couple months as well. So I think, as I said in the beginning, we need to be open, but I think we owe it to our town to take responsibility for that now, and keep our fingers crossed with what you're able to do at the state. So anyway.
So for the sake of moving things
Okay.
along, because I know we're coming up on our next meeting, so what, can I reiterate? We have $500,000 total. We have 250. This is just what we're talking about. This is not a decision or a motion or
Right.
anything. We've got 250 from Kathy Egan's town accounts, 30 of which was realized savings, could be realized savings in workers' comp, which leaves
220.
220 in capital, specifically probably the parking lot fund. So on the other side is, we got there by Kathy's recommendation. On the Board of Ed's budget, is there a way to find out what their recommendation would be on a split, or is that not possible?
Well, the difficulty, one of the difficulties that I know that we talked about now is that if we don't make a decision, the Board of Ed has to meet again, and we have to meet again. This budget can't move forward to the town meeting. So my hope tonight is to make some decisions and move it forward, and then keep an open dialogue with the board about what you see coming. Kathy, the Board of Ed, you're all sitting here listening to this, and keep an open dialogue as to what's happening in the next couple of months. And I think if we can all agree that we need to keep an open dialogue, and it may change with what you can do with your, in both Kathy's, Egan or Greeter, with hiring, with some other contracts, with some things that are, with, as we found with the workman's comp, or different things like that are going on. I think I'd like us as a council to be open to have those conversations, so that we can see what happens, because we don't know from the state yet. We'll see what happens there. We may be pleasantly surprised. So
So in other words, we could create a similar split.
yes,
Capital, I don't even know if there's a percentage there, what that was. What is it, essentially 2/3, 1/3, or am I overestimating that?
I didn't even do it that way, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in any event, we could do some sort of split, and then what I'm hearing Nancy say is that with the understanding that once the Board of Ed, once we all know what we're actually dealing with, if there's a different way that they would prefer to go about it, that would be open to them? Is that what you're saying?
that's what I'm saying. And I have to hear from, we're not making a motion or voting right now, but I guess I'm looking for the council to be open with that this year, and particularly because this is so different than years past. And I know I'm repeating, but I think it's important to do that, that in past years, yes, we've gone through this same kind of machination, but it's been in March. We're now here in April. So I think it behooves us to keep our minds open and have that open dialogue. So if our council can do that, we'll talk about this again in our next meeting.
Yeah, but I just want to understand, so conceptually what you're saying is, we'll just put in a reduction of $300,000 for the parking lot project, reduction of $30,000 pencil that in from the insurance, from the workers' comp, and then the 170 remaining, we would take that out of the Board of Education and let them figure it out?
No,
Okay.
no.
I didn't understand it then.
We have to, and I went through this actually asking Kathy and Joe how the process works, because this is new for us. We have to make a decision about the capital and the operating budgets. We can't just say to the Board of Ed, we could, but then the board would have to have a meeting, as I said, and then we'd have to have another meeting to move it forward for the 25th. We could say today, we want X dollars to be, if we wanted half and half, we could say the council's going to get this, the board's going to have this in your operating and in your capital, thank you. And then if we find, as the months unfold, that there are situations with the board that we say, gee, this is much better for us than this one, then we make those changes. But initially today, we're going to have to, unless we want to all come back for meetings, we're going to have to make those decisions and actually have a percent for those, am I right, Kathy, for Board of Ed, for the council, and for capital. And the revenue, we have to, if we don't want to have those changes in the bottom line.
Yes, well, you have to, it's like you're going to act on the budget like you did in March. So you're going to have to say that the board's budget is X, the town's budget is X, the capital budget is X. And because if you have an interest, which it sounds like you do, of doing both the board, capital, and operating, you can't lump them both together because the capital has to have another number. So you know what I'm saying? So the capital has to be a different number. But I think what Nancy was saying, and what you were saying earlier, it's the same concept that you may say the board's number is this and the capital number is the board portion is X, but it's somewhat fluid. I think I've heard that if later on in the July, if that really doesn't work for you, the board I'm talking about, you guys could come back and you guys could do a transfer and you could change it around if that's what you chose to do.
We have that authority to do that.
Because
You know
if
what I'm
Kathy
saying?
Greeter, if we all find out what number it is that we're really dealing with here, and she would have the opportunity to come to us and say, quite frankly, given this number, it would make a lot more sense for the schools to put it here.
Well,
And,
look,
you
yeah.
know, I don't know whether that would happen or not happen.
Well,
but at
here's
least-
just a quick example, and again, I'm just taking what you've said. If you were going to do the 50-50 reduction, and I understand that what you said, but how that would work, what I just said with the parking lot and the operating was 88% would come out of the town's capital, and 12% was coming out of the operating budget. So if you were going to do a similar type of percentage for the board and capital, it would be 88% capital, 10% out of the operating.
Let me flip it
So
this
what is
way.
that?
Yeah, well, let me flip it this way. This makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Out of your operating,
Yeah.
what, $30,000 out of your operating, what percent of your operating is that?
0.1%.
0.1%.
And what's that for the board?
30,000?
No. What's 0.1% out of 250, out of the half?
It depends on
Oh,
what
oh.
number you want to go in.
You're saying what's 30% out of?
No.
What's 0.1% of their operating?
0.1% of 65 million is what they're
Yeah.
asking.
I think, if I'm correct, it's $90,000.
But Kathy, we could decide on the Board of Ed capital side tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So that, there's no reason that we can't make all decisions with respect to capital. We just can't touch, we just have to give a specific number for operating.
Right, that's what I
Right.
said, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So the vast majority of it can be dealt with tonight,
Right.
Oh,
unless we
Yeah.
choose not to touch operating at all on the Board of Ed.
Right. I guess what the thing was is that it sounded, what John had said and what I was thinking about earlier on is saying, okay, it's $160,000, the board side. You take it like we do for the operating budget and say, 160, do what you want, figure
we
it out.
can't do that.
We can't
Right.
do that. We have to put in different
Can
numbers.
we put in a change into the Board of Education's capital plan without specifically
Yes.
identifying a project?
Yes.
So we
And-
can have just a special projects minus something?
Yes.
And then we
Yes.
can say to the Board of Ed, you're going to have this reduction to capital, you decide where you want to take that reduction. We can do that.
Right.
So what I would suggest that what we do is to make a minus $30,000 to the operating plan, because we're not going to spend it anyways, that we make a minus $300,000 by putting a zero in for the parking lot, and put in a new special projects for minus $170,000 into the Board of Education, and that'll leave us the leeway, if I'm hearing it, for them to come back and say, no, we don't want it there, we want it here.
Or we could do that for the operating as well.
Or we could do it for the operating as well, yeah.
Right, right. And they could still say to us, we
Right.
think that we're in dire straits for this operating piece.
Yeah.
Because now this has happened.
Yeah.
So we'd prefer you do it in the capital.
Yeah, I mean, I
We
think
could make that change
my
later.
worry is that, let's say we think we're doing the right thing by erring on the side of capital, only to find out that over the spring and summer months, they realize savings in operating, and then
Right.
they're stuck.
Right.
What if they never, I don't want to put them in a position where
Well, that's
we're
what
in
he
the
said, that
wrong
they could
pot,
come,
you know
you
what
could
I'm
come
saying?
back.
Exactly.
You could come back and do some
Exactly.
kind of transfer.
Right, right. And that's the thing that we haven't talked about openly, because of this kind of a situation. And we are talking about it openly, to say we want you to come back to us. Whatever the dollars are, okay. Well, anything, John, did you want to make comment on this?
Just a real quick question, Kathy, with the parking lot. You said earlier that you still want to fund some of it. So would it be reasonable to request 250 out of the parking lot and keep it at 50/50, and then we put?
I mean,
50,000 back in?
again, I think that's really a council's
Okay, but-
decision on this. I think we're going to need the parking lot.
Yeah,
So it's
okay.
really, eventually, we're going to need it, but it's, I think, up to you guys of what you want to do.
You won't be spending it in this fiscal year.
I would say it's going to be very difficult to do that.
So it's money that we're banking, that realistically we're using in subsequent years.
Thank you.
Okay. So I think, with that said, we have no executive session for this meeting, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we have 2 minutes to grab something and get back in our chair. We'll take a couple minutes. Good evening. I'd like to call the town council meeting to order and ask everyone to join us and with the Pledge of Allegiance. But could I ask the Eagle Scouts to lead us tonight?
Come on up, guys. Just start.
Thank you very much. Okay, before we begin the proclamations, we have a change in order. Meredith?
Oh, do you want me to do that now?
Yes.
Okay, I move to waive the rules of procedure to change the order of the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Okay, I
Okay.
move to consider agenda item N1, which is to approve the town council's recommended budget for the fiscal year 2016-17 to before agenda item E, new items.
Second.
And this is where it generally is on our agenda under new business, but with everyone here and concerned about the budget, we want to make sure we move that up right after the public hearing so that you don't have to wait around for that, so. All those in favor say aye?
But
Oh, I'm
at the
sorry.
public hearing, there will be opportunities for public comment on.
Oh, absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. All those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we will begin with the proclamations. Amy?
Just, Skylar was going to start. We are lucky to have 3 Eagle presentations.
And the parents?
And the parents, absolutely. Because the parents are very much involved with getting him where he is. I had the opportunity to celebrate Skylar at an unbelievable court of honor about a month back. So Skylar got to hear me talk a lot, and many people extol him for what an outstanding young man he is. At that time, what I did as one of the things is I read an oath that the Boy Scouts take, and I just pointed out how, to me, it really encompassed who Skylar was. So I just want to highlight it for everyone here. One of the oaths the Boy Scouts take is to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. And each scout sort of something is unique about them, and to me, this is Skylar. The physically strong is clear. He's a major athlete. He plays on Farmington High School soccer team and their track team. He plays on an indoor team. He's, I believe, the captain of your track team, correct? Yeah, indoor soccer. But what stood out to me more than anything for Skylar is the mentally awake. In addition to being an outstanding student and a musician, plays the trumpet, he has a real interest in engineering, and he seems to take it to a whole nother level. He studied at UConn School of Engineering, Explore Engineering program. He actually studied in this town hall. He worked with Matt Bloom, which is the Farmington's first civil engineer. I spoke with Matt about Skylar, and Matt, to quote Matt, that Skylar is bright, very fast learner. He brought him to town sites, and he had all the right questions, very intuitive. Matt was very impressed by him. But the thing that stood out the most on the mentally awake for me is you're going to learn a little bit about what his Eagle project was. But he didn't stop there. Most people who make it to Eagle, and it's hard enough to make it to Eagle, you make it to Eagle, you finally finish a project, you take a deep breath, and you're done. He didn't do that. He filed a provisional patent application. And this summer he's going to be marketing his, and it's a turtle basking platform. National Geographic may be writing an article about him, and now he's working on his actual patent. So, talk about mentally awake. I mean, he's mentally very awake, and I think that's outstanding, and I'm very excited to hear about where he is 5 and 10 years down the road. And the last thing I think ties to all of these young men is the morally straight. When we talk about the countless hours that Boy Scouts dedicate to our town, this is what we're talking about. And they're doing it in things like repairing trails, repairing World War II memorial, food pantry drives. I mean, the list goes on, and the hours that Skylar has dedicated to our town is outstanding. So I just couldn't be more impressed with Skylar. And as I said, I just want to give a little bit of flavor of who he is. So now you actually get the proclamation. Last time I read it, but then I took it away from the format. The other reason I have his parents here, and I just want to just note, I am a parent who's involved in this troop. That's why I'm doing these presentations. And I know that this is a family affair. It's an enormous amount of work for you, and you deserve all the praise. But it doesn't happen unless not only your family, but your community, Troop 68, and your town supports you. So I think Mom and Dad absolutely deserve to be up here. Proclamation. Whereas the Boy Scouts of America help train the youth of our community with skills which serve them well in the future, and whereas many of the youth participate in activities of the Boy Scouts of America which benefit our community, whereas one of the crowning achievements of Boy Scouting is the attainment of the rank of Eagle Scout. 1% of all kids who start Scouts make it to Eagle. I mean, we have 3 here tonight, but I do not want anyone to take away that this is somehow easy. 1%. Whereas Skylar Zott's project involved the design and creation of 10 turtle basking platforms that were placed at Walton Pond and Dunning Lake at Winding Trails. This project was so successful that National Geographic has expressed an interest in potentially doing a project utilizing these turtle basking platforms, and Skylar is currently working on a patent application for the platforms. Whereas Skylar Zott earned 35 merit badges and served in his troop as scribe, assistant patrol leader, historian, patrol leader, earning first place on the orienting competitions. Whereas Skylar Zott was a summer intern at the town's engineering department, attended the University of Connecticut Explore Engineering program, and took first place in his age group twice in the Riverfront Scrambles 5K races. Whereas as a result of Skylar Zott's work, the lives of Farmington people will be enriched and enhanced, and we thank you for it. We're here to all thank you. Now therefore be it resolved that on behalf of Farmington Town Council, we hereby extend to Skylar Zott our very best wishes, and we hereby proclaim April 13th, 2016 as Skylar Zott Day in Farmington, Connecticut. I don't know what you're going to do, but you should be celebrating. That's what, Wednesday, right? Dated Farmington, Connecticut, this 11th day of April, 2016. Nancy Nickerson, Chair, Farmington Town Council. So congratulations. Thank you. So there's a color choice involved.
Great.
Eyes. Mom? Maroon, okay. Gray or maroon? That would be great. All right. I think we're going to end up running out of gray costumes. Give you a heads up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Thank you. Now the Busdens, come on up. Hello. We did also celebrate Spencer. This is Spencer Busden on that same Court of Honor, which honestly was such an outstanding event. And I thank the parents for putting together so much of it. I know Spencer pretty well. Spencer is often in my car. He's part of our carpooling. I texted Spencer today when I couldn't find my son, and he was the one who knew where my son was. So I have my own, one-on-one relationship with Spencer. I'm going to speak about that in a second. But before I do that, I'd like to just show you how outstanding these young men are, and just give you a sense of who they are out beyond what they've done in Scouts. Spencer, it's APs and honors and top grades, always challenging himself. He's a varsity coxswain for our crew. He's the founder and president of the Finance Club. He's on the economics team. They just went to Harvard to compete last weekend, right? He is very active in St. Patrick's Church. He is a musician. He is on the Tri-M Music Honor Society. And he has been a member of both the engineering team that won the Greater Boston Region for Future City Engineering, and they competed in DC, and also the science team where they won some honors. Again, it's amazing to me how much these kids get done. I was nowhere near this in my high school. They're just so ambitious and so hungry for knowledge and learning and challenging. What I talked about Spencer last time, and I just think this is huge. When I think of Spencer, I think of character. As I said, he's in my car a lot. And I've never had a situation where he didn't say, "Thank you, Mrs. Suffredini," when he left the car. We talked about this earlier. He is always offering his help when I'm looking for my son, who I can't find, when he's offering advice to other kids who are younger as to, whether it's about college or school or the like. He's just always there to offer a hand, and so polite and so respectful and full of integrity. One other experience my family had is Boy Scouts does a lot of camping. And we had one camping event, a Bear Mountain hike, that didn't go so well. And Spencer and his brother were the first ones to hike in and help the kids in need. It wasn't even a question. They were going to go and they were going to help. That's character is huge. And you don't have a person of character without two people behind them fighting very hard to make that happen. So again, I could talk about all these boys at length, but when I think of Spencer, that was what came to mind. So Spencer, again, he's heard this too. This time he gets to bring it home. I'm going to start, since I'm not going to repeat the first three, which we talked about how much, just the general things. Whereas Spencer Busden from Troop 68, Boy Scouts of America, recently completed requirements for Eagle Scout. Whereas Spencer Busden's product involved the installation of 5 cameras at winding trails to capture images of animals such as bear, deer, turkeys, birds, and turtles. Whereas Spencer Busden and his team of volunteers built and installed 5 additional bluebird boxes for winding trails that included a video camera inside the nesting box. Whereas Spencer Busden built the website, www.windingtrailsnature.org, which features photos captured by the cameras, which are used for additional information for nature programs at the park and has become a critical tool for communications. And whereas Spencer Busden is a varsity coxswain for Farmington High School crew team, the founder and president of the Finance Club, recently inducted into the Tri-M Music Honor Society, and competed in the National Science Bowl after his team won Connecticut region. Whereas as a result of Spencer Busden's work, the lives of the people of Farmington will be enriched and enhanced. And again, I want to just enhance, we are here to say thank you. And that's why we come and we honor these young boys. And we are so lucky to have them. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on behalf of the Farmington Town Council, we hereby extend to Spencer Busden our best wishes and proclaim April 14th, you get Thursday, which I believe you will be at Crew, as Spencer Busden Day in Farmington, Connecticut, dated at Farmington, Connecticut, this 11th day, April 2016. Nancy Nickerson, Chair, Town Council. Congratulations. Sure. Lorraine? Anything fun? Maroon's wonderful. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Amy, you're going to be here. Thank you. And our final Eagle Scout tonight, give me a moment, Michael Prunk. Hello. Hello, how are you? I'm good. Michael wasn't at the Court of Honor that I was at, so he gets to listen to me for the first time tonight. Again, I want to sort of start with just sort of a little bit about Michael. In addition to like his colleagues being an excellent student, Michael first and foremost is a bit of a musician, right? Is that where your heart is?
I guess so.
He plays the violin for the symphony orchestra. He's also a member of the Triumph Honor Society. He's a mentor during the Suzuki summer camp. He's done that 3 years in a row to young students who are playing. And what I thought was pretty cool is that you've taught yourself piano, acoustic, and bass guitar, and a part of a band.
Yes.
And I believe, Nancy, did you see him in school play Little Shop of Horrors? He was just cynics. I know you guys went there. Just to give a flavor, I mean, so diverse, still fantastic grades. I believe you're also an athlete. You're on the track and field, yes? What I did, I spoke to Doug Pelham is the leader of Troop 68. I don't know Michael as well, so I asked Doug a little about you. So I'd like to read what Doug said. He's just one of those low-maintenance scouts who went about his scouting career in a matter-of-fact way and was a pleasure to have in the troop. His Eagle Scout project went incredibly smooth. I was impressed at how easily he seemed to get scouts to research and write the informational paragraphs on the wildflowers included in the board at the aqueduct parcel. I know how difficult it can be to motivate others, especially when they're volunteering, but obviously he has some leadership ability, as I did not hear anything about him having trouble getting people to do things. So low maintenance leader, I think that's a pretty awesome skill.
I'll take it.
You'll take it. The one last thing I wanted to note about Michael and his family, which is actually quite incredible. Michael, his 2 older brothers, and his 5 cousins are all Eagle Scouts. Now, again, I'm going to go back to my 1% number. 1% of the kids who start actually make it to Eagle Scout. So not only is it outstanding that Michael's made it, but 8 now in one family. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm impressed. And the proclamation. Whereas Michael Prunk from Troop 68, Boy Scouts of America, recently completed the requirements for Eagle Scout. Whereas Michael's project benefited the Farmington Land Trust with the creation of a new hiking map and trail kiosk to replace the old kiosk, the research of 10 native wildflowers with an informational poster with photographs and facts about the wildflowers, and the construction of a second informational kiosk to display the wildflower information on the historic Henry Mason parcel and aqueduct trail. And whereas Michael Prunk and his team of volunteers cleared logs and other debris from the trail and trimmed overhanging branches, which with over 100, and I need to tell the 143 hours of free service to the town just for this alone. Thank you. Whereas Michael Prunk was elected to the National Youth Leadership Training and Order of the Arrow and was elected by his troop as senior patrol leader, scribe, and librarian. Whereas Michael is an accomplished musician and a member of Farmington High School Symphony Strings Orchestra and serves as a mentor to young musicians. Whereas a result of his hard work, the lives of people of Farmington will be enriched and enhanced. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on behalf of the town of Farmington, Town Council, we hereby extend to Michael our best wishes and proclaim Friday, you get a Friday, April 15th, 2016, as Michael Prunk Day in Farmington, Connecticut. Dated Farmington, Connecticut, this 11th day, April 2016. Nancy Nickerson, Chair of Town Council. Congratulations. Oh, that's a lot of pressure. I actually like this.
Low maintenance.
I'm going to go for this. Sorry, I won't do that to you. I really want that one.
I like it.
What color can I give you guys? You like mine?
And I already have two from the other ones.
You do? Oh. Wow, he's saving money for the town. We thank you for that.
Take another.
A picture of the four of you? Yeah, we love that. Thank you. Great. Thank you. Thank you. And we have one more proclamation tonight. Congratulations. Thanks, Amy.
Before you go, Madam Chair, may I?
Yes.
Thank you.
And before you do that, Mike, go ahead, come up. As you're coming up, I just want to say congratulations to all of you Eagle Scouts. I will share, I do know how hard it is and all the work that goes into it. My son, who's 35, is an Eagle Scout, and I remember being so impressed by he was Troop 68. And it's really a tough and a long haul, and it starts early on when you're in elementary school, and it's right, and it changes throughout the years. And I know when you're as you get older, you've got a lot more going on, and to focus and become an Eagle Scout and continue all the activities that you clearly are still a part of is not an easy task at all. And so it's an amazing feat that you become an Eagle Scout. You are one of the 1%. It always amazed me, and it's absolutely wonderful. So just on behalf of all of us, congratulations, and great. You should be very proud, and so should your parents. So, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to offer my congratulations as well to Skylar and to Spencer. I was lucky enough to attend the Court of Honor that Amy was talking about, but I wanted to make sure that Michael also got his hardware tonight. So if I could, I'll be brief. From the State of Connecticut General Assembly official citation introduced by Representative D'Amico, Representative Becker, Senator Bai, and Senator Geritana. Be it hereby known to all that the Connecticut General Assembly hereby offers its sincerest congratulations to Michael Prunk in recognition of your elevation to the rank of Eagle Scout, the highest achievement in scouting. You can be proud of your accomplishments and the good work that you have done for your community. The personal qualities that have enabled you to meet this goal will serve you well in your future endeavors. The entire membership extends its very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued success. Given this 11th day of April 2016 at the State Capitol in Hartford by Martin Looney, President Pro Tem of the State Senate, Brendan Sharkey, Speaker of the House of Representatives, and Denise Merrill, Secretary of the State. Congratulations, Michael. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Congratulations again. Okay, our next proclamation, John.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I want to also congratulate the 3 Eagle Scouts tonight, and the proclamation that I'm about to read actually has a little to do with the Eagle Scouts and the Boy Scouts. So let me ask you 3, how many of you 3 have delivered phone books for the Farmington Exchange Club? Probably 3 for 3, right? For many, many years. Every year, the Farmington Exchange Club delivers 10,000 phone books to the town of Farmington, and Boy Scouts Troop 68 usually picks up about 5,000 of those 10,000 that we deliver, so they do about half. The Farmington Exchange Club was the founding organization, the charter organization for Boy Scout Troop 68 back in the 20s. We don't have an exact date on that, we just know it was in the 20s. So we are, and we still to this day are the charter organization that sponsors Boy Scout Troop 68 and 170. And the Boy Scouts are always there to help us, whether it's delivering phone books or it's serving hot chocolate at Winding Trails or any other number of things that the Exchange Club of Farmington does, they are there for us. So we appreciate that. I am a Farmington Exchange Club member, past president. I see a past president and district officer in the audience and another member up there. So the Exchange Club is a wonderful organization, and their charter mission is the prevention of child abuse. That is why they are in existence, to raise money to go towards the prevention of child abuse. And April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. This year just so happens to be the 20th anniversary of the Bristol Parent and Child Center, which the Farmington Exchange Club founded in 1996, and their mission is to prevent child abuse through education. What they do is they bring in young families who are at risk and educate them on how to raise children. And so, like I said, this is the 20th anniversary, and because of that, we are going to read a proclamation in honor of the Bristol Parent and Child Center, which they serve families in Bristol and Farmington. I don't have the fancy proclamation with me because I did present it March 28th it was a beautiful ceremony. However, it was also very sobering. What they did was they right outside the center is a garden, and it's a very peaceful garden. And they had a tree lighting ceremony that had just over or just under 700 blue lights on it, and it's still lit today. It's at the corner of Main Street and Prospect Street in Bristol, if anyone wants to drive by it. But there is just under 700 blue lights that are shining on that, and each light represents a reported case of child abuse in both the town of Farmington and the town of Bristol. 687 to be exact in the last year. And that's just reported cases. So it was a nice ceremony. However, like I said, it was a sobering event. But I did have the privilege of presenting this proclamation to Kim, who's the director of the Bristol Parent and Child Center. And so I will read that proclamation to you all tonight. Proclamation. Whereas the month of April is hereby declared National Child Abuse Prevention Month, and whereas the Parent and Child Center at Bristol Hospital, founded in 1996 by the Exchange Clubs of Farmington and Bristol, is celebrating its 20th anniversary in April. And whereas the center is the Central Connecticut organization committed to preventing child abuse by helping Connecticut parents and caregivers break the cycle of child abuse through positive parenting education, home visiting support, and intervention. And whereas the center will conduct its annual Blue Ribbon campaign for the prevention of child abuse, and the funds raised in the campaign will be used to support educational programs that work directly with families, affording parents the opportunity to strengthen their parenting skills. And now therefore it be it resolved that the town of Farmington hereby recognizes and proclaims April as Child Abuse Prevention Month in the town of Farmington, dated this 28th day of March 2016 at Farmington, Connecticut. Nancy Nickerson, Chair, Farmington Town Council. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. And we're proud to have Farmington be a part of that. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is our public hearing. Paula, Ray.
Public hearing will be held on Monday, April 11th, 2016 at 7:05 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers on the Town Council's proposed budget for the fiscal year 2016-17, dated at Farmington, Connecticut, this 25th day of March 2016. Kathleen A. Egan, Town Manager.
Thank you. Now, just so you do know the process, this is the public hearing on the budget. I'm going to say a few words, and then Kathy Egan will get up and give the details of the budget. and then Chris Fagan and Kathy Greeter will talk about the board budget. After that, then we will have public comment only on the budget, this public hearing. It's just public comment on this piece. Later in the meeting, we will have public comment on any issue, but specifically the public comment here is just the budget.
Or you give me the cue.
Good evening. I'll start by saying we know there may be some adjustments as we move forward later on when we actually talk about the motion itself. Good evening. I'm here tonight to present the Farmington Town Council budget for the 2016-17 fiscal year. The budget we are presenting to you tonight has an increase of 0.68 to the mill rate, a 2.7% increase to the tax rate, an increase to an average household assessment that's $232,074 of $157.05. Our budget deliberations and decisions are based on our strategic plan and the goal of maintaining excellent services while being fiscally responsible. The next slide shows our tax rate history. Our tax rate increase this year is 2.7%, in line with our 5-year average and below our 10 and 15-year averages. This is a result of excellent fiscal planning and following a strategic plan that defines the needs and the desires of our citizens. This chart illustrates our grand list growth from 2007-2008 to 2016-17 without the reval years. Our grand list experienced its largest increase in almost a decade this year with 1.2. I'm proud to report that we continue to have a AAA Moody's rating. This is a result of a stable governing body, financial management stability, a strong tax base, funding our reserve account appropriately, and a commitment to funding our pension in a reasonable, responsible manner. This allows our town to have a better bonding interest rate when we're borrowing. As of 2015, only 17 towns in our state had a AAA Moody's rating. We are strong economically with a residential tax base of 73% and a commercial tax base of 27%. The economic strength in our town is evident by the increase in our grand list this year of 1.2%, or over $42 million this year. We have commercial and residential growth and a reinvestment in businesses and homes. We have excellent town services and an excellent school system, a nationally accredited police department for 24 years. Our nationally acclaimed Farmington School District was written up in Education Week, which it listed Farmington Public Schools as one of the top 25 districts worth visiting. The Town Council uses 3 main goals to guide us in the budget process. We believe that we have a responsibility to the taxpayers to bring a fiscally responsible budget forward and at the same time provide core services to our citizens. We are proud of our schools. People move here for the schools, and we will continue to provide excellence in education. The cost of maintaining the town's infrastructure through the capital budget is a necessary expense excuse me, that we recognized in order to meet the town's capital improvement needs. The CIP budget. The town's objective is to contribute at least 2.5% of annual general fund revenue to the capital improvement program. This year, the proposed general fund appropriation is 3.32%. The 3 main funding themes for the proposed CIP are 1, equipment infrastructure and maintenance, 2, technology and communication initiatives, and 3, the building improvements and renovations. This year we have 2 bonding questions. The 2 proposed for the May referendum are the $4 million for road reconstruction. We understand the importance of continuing our program of well-maintained roads. The current plan addresses town-wide road replacement needs. The second bonding item is a $600,000 to replace the engine 3 in the fire department. And you'll hear more about that when Kathy goes through her budget on how we plan, excuse me, plan ahead for the years. The recommended 2016-17 budget continues the town's commitment to providing and funding exceptional services to our residents and our businesses. The proposed budget increases the total expenditures by $3,563,978, or 3.63%. The proposed budget was built to not only maintain current services, but for both the town and the Board of Education, but also to expand the services based on our strategic plan and to ensure that our capital improvement needs are met. Farmington is a great town to live and work. We remain well-positioned in terms of economic development, exceptional education, and providing high-level services without substantially increasing tax resources. The town council, following the the town council, following the guidelines in the strategic plan, strives to produce a well-balanced budget in order to maintain excellent services and meet the needs of the community. The town manager and the Board of Education will now give you more detail on the budget.
Oh, I thought you wanted a hat. Thanks. Good evening. Members of the public, I present for your review the Town Council's proposed budget for fiscal year 16-17. The town's strategic plan and the town's capital improvement policy were the policy guidelines at the forefront when formulating the budget. The general fund budget includes the proposed spending for the town, for the school system, for debt service, and for capital improvements. The proposed budget for Westwood's Golf Course, the Recreation Fund, and the solid waste collection and disposal are also included for your review. The total proposed budget for fiscal year 16-17 is $101,099,715, an increase of $3,536,978, or 3.63% above the current budget. The recommended town expenditure increase is 4.09%. This includes the transfer of the golf course maintenance accounts of $376,021, or 1.4%, into the general fund. This transfer is offset by the revenues collected by the golf course operation. I've included $332,990 in the revenue portion of the budget. The revenue of the golf course offsets the majority of these expenditures. Without the transfer of the golf course operations, the recommended budget is 2.71%. This not only maintains the service levels that residents expect, it enables the expansion of several services. The Town Council's proposed town budget is $28,229,371, an increase of $1,110,463, or 4.09% above the current expenditure. Highlights include the following. The town manager's account shows a part-time land consultant position that will manage the town's land acquisition program. The registrar's budget has been increased to support the presidential election in November of 2016. The planning department shows an increase to fund a map scanning project. The town clerk's office equipment has been increased to reflect storage needs. The fire hydrant fees are projected to increase by 5.9% for the upcoming fiscal year. The community policing account in the police department has been increased to add a new patrol officer position to support traffic efforts in town. The police animal control account shows a reduction due to the use of the Town of Burlington Municipal Animal Shelter over a private kennel to board dogs. The police fleet account includes funding for 3 new 24-hour police vehicles and lease payments for 4 unmarked cars and a replacement animal control officer vehicle. This is in line with our police replacement plan. The Highway and Grounds Operation account shows funding for 4 summer seasonal employees who will be used to supplement regular staff. The gas and diesel accounts have been decreased to reflect lower fuel cost. The Westwoods Golf Course Maintenance account has been added to the Highway and Grounds budget. This includes 2 full-time positions and 2 seasonal positions. The engineering account includes funds for a seasonal construction inspector to assist the department with several large state and town construction projects. The busing account has been increased to reflect spending. The Recreation Department in the Westwoods Golf Course has been restructured. This will also include consolidation efforts with the Board of Education on recreation programs. The health insurance account contains a 3.8% increase. This is a result of a slight increase in the town's insurance renewal for next year. The health and hypertension account has been decreased due to a stabilization of claims cost. In summary, the town council's proposed budget is $28,229,371, which is an increase of $1,110,463, or 4.09% above the current expenditure. The debt service group of accounts includes appropriations to make principal and investment payments, interest payments on the town's long-term bonded debt. The total proposed amount for the next fiscal year is $6,827,369. This is an increase of $8,749, or 0.13% from the previous year. Debt service payments are flat as a result of the maturing of debt and the refinancing of some existing debt that was undertaken last year. Special services. The refuse collection budget includes the cost of collecting and disposing of solid and bulky waste generated by town residents in the town's landfill operation. This budget proposes no rate increase. The annual fee will remain at $235 per household. The general fund capital projects. The proposed general fund appropriation to support the capital improvements is $3,356,900. The proposed capital budget recommends funding above the policy limit in order to take advantage of projected flat debt service payments in year 16-17. Over the past few years, debt service payments have been reduced or have been flat. This reduction will be temporary, as we will soon be increasing the town's outstanding debt to finance the upgrade of the wastewater treatment facility. Since the reduction is expected to be short-term, I am recommending that we use these funds to increase the capital budget to fund improvement projects on a non-recurring nature. In the following years, when the town's debt service increases, we will then be able to move these funds back to the debt service budget to help mitigate the impact to the tax rate. The town's capital improvement plan, CIP, and the town's strategic plan were the policy guidelines that were in the forefront when formulating the CIP, while focusing the appropriations into 3 main funding themes. These themes are equipment, infrastructure maintenance improvements, technology and communication initiatives, and building improvements and renovations. Shown here is a list of the recommended capital budget. The proposed budget has 2 bonding items. The first item is very similar to the bond that was presented several years ago for road reconstruction and paving. A bond appropriation of $4 million is proposed and would include road reconstruction and paving along with miscellaneous drainage projects. The funding would allow the town to pave and reconstruct approximately 10 miles of town roads. The second question is the replacement of Engine 3 at Southwest Fire Station for $600,000. Here is an overview of the proposed road reconstruction that will be completed over the next 3 years. This slide shows the northwest section of town, which includes a portion of the Lake Garda, roads off of 167 and Route 177, and an area off of West District Road. This slide shows the south central section of town, which includes Pinnacle Road and a portion of Farmington Village roads. This slide shows the northeast section of town, which includes Oakland Gardens. The Water Pollution Control Authority held its public hearing on its budget on March 9, 2016. The budget shows a 2.6% increase in the sewer usage rate. The Board of Education account includes a proposed appropriation of $62,686,075, an increase of 3.80% above the current year's budget. I will now call on Chris Fagan, the Chair of the Board of Education, then Kathy Greeter, who will discuss the board's budget, and then I will be back to discuss the grand list, revenues, and the mill rate.
Good evening. My name is Chris Fagan. Good evening, Town Council members, parents, students, and community members. As everyone's aware, our 2016-2017 budget was approved by the Board of Education and the Town Council over the recent, during multiple sessions over the recent budget approval process. And I think that the budget, as presented, reflects a deliberative and collaborative effort between the administration and the board, and represents thoughtful efforts in coming up with a meaningful approach to the budgetary process as we try to maintain the high level of performance historically achieved by our schools. I truly appreciate, having sat through the earlier meeting, the exigent circumstances we're operating under at the present time due to the changes at the state level. But I think I would like to just echo the comments made by the council members that together, the council and the Board of Education work in a collaborative fashion, open and frank dialogue as we tackle these challenges and try to minimize the ultimate impact to the entire community and, most importantly, the students of our district. So that being said, I'm just going to give a brief overview and hit on some of the things that Kathy Egan just mentioned, but the Board of Education budget reflects a total budget amount of $62,686,075 with an increase of $294,866, or an increase of 3.8% over the 2015-2016 budget. And like all budgets that we put forward, the budget includes a continuation and expansion of the Board of Education's 5-year goals. And with that in mind, I'll leave it there. That's some detail on the budget. But with that in mind, what our budget is designed to do and implement is continue with the innovative programming across all content areas, kindergarten through 12, and expand the elementary world language program. The budget also includes support in special services for students identified with special needs, and as we went through that process, that was certainly flagged as a very important and large area of our budget. There will be continued focus on staff and faculty development, technology, integrated instruction, curriculum development, and reasonable class size aligned to the Board of Education's class size policy. So those are just some general overviews, and I'd just like to introduce Kathy Greeter, the superintendent of our schools, who will provide a more detailed overview of our budget.
I want to begin by congratulating Skylar and Spencer and Michael. I think as I was thinking about this budget presentation, I think I should just bring those 3 young men up here and say, this is what our school system, along with our parents, can produce in our students. It was just so impressive. And I was also really struck by the fact that they all have involvement in our music program, and they've taken full advantage of all of the programs that we provide. We always talk about developing the whole child, and we had 3 wonderful examples of that tonight. So congratulations to both the young men and their families. I want to thank Chris Fagan. I want to also just welcome everyone, our town council, our Board of Education, our parents, students in the audience, and our Farmington residents. The 2016-17 school district budget was developed to address the Board of Education's mission, 5-year goals, our vision of the graduate, and priorities within the budget guidelines, policies of the board, and state and federal requirements. Our vision of the graduate was collaboratively developed back in 2009-10 school year by the entire community. Since that time, the Vision of the Graduate has driven our improvement efforts in visionary ways, placing Farmington at the forefront of innovation in teaching, learning, student outcomes, and students as leaders of their own learning. This is a slide of the 4 main components of our Vision of the Graduate. On this slide, you will see examples of students actively engaged in learning in highly authentic and meaningful ways. Our Vision of the Graduate includes a core body of knowledge, the content, and thinking and learning skills required for success in college and careers. The Board of Education's budget I present this evening was developed to address Farmington's compelling mission. Our mission was designed to directly align to our goals and Vision of the Graduate, creating a strong through line from our mission and goals to all classrooms across all schools. As Chris Fagan reviewed, the Board of Education budget reflects a total budget amount of $62,686,075 with an increase of $2,294,866 or a 3.8% increase over the 2015-16 school district budget. The major drivers of this budget are as follows. Salaries is a 1.67% increase, and these are contractual obligations. Benefits, 0.99% of the increase. Again, those are contractual obligations. Special services, and this would be under the category of new special services programming for next year, accounts for 1.27% of the 3.8 increase. And these are special education services driven by need. And then overall services is a 0.13% increase. And the examples of this would be contractual bus contract, legal services. We have some upcoming negotiations with our teachers and administrators, as well as much needed repairs to our buildings. And all the other, we have a negative 0.26% to arrive at the 3.8% increase. Here are some examples of our favorable state rankings when it comes to expenditures. I will highlight just a few of these rankings. There is a relationship between this slide and an upcoming slide on the many and varied accomplishments of the school district. Excellence in education and fiscal responsibility in management are 2 themes. The rankings are based on Connecticut's 169 towns, with 1 spending the most and 169 spending the least. In school-based administration, those are our administrators at each of our schools, we're 154th. Farmington administrators on average supervise, develop, and evaluate more teachers than similar districts. And this is truly impressive when we look at the state teacher evaluation guidelines and requirements, increased legislative demands, and our own internal expectations of our administrators here in Farmington. General administration is 155, special education is 153, and although we have added positions in programming and special education due to student need, this is a major budget driver in this budget. We have done so in a fiscally responsible way given this ranking. In plant services, 143, and this speaks to our outstanding custodial and maintenance staff. Regular education transportation, 129, total transportation, 149, and then employee benefits, 147. We have much to be proud of as a community. Farmington continues to be highlighted at the regional, state, and national levels for excellence in teaching and learning and student outcomes. This slide highlights some of our accomplishments, and I'll highlight a few notable ones. One that's not on this slide, recently our music department was selected as the 1 school district in the state to receive the 2016 CAAA Excellence in the Arts Education Award, which will be awarded on May 12th at the state capitol. Our FHS debate and economics team, one was mentioned tonight, recently had impressive showings at state and international competitions, coming in 1st and 2nd. Last year, which was highlighted earlier, we were highlighted in Ed Week as one of the 25 school districts worth visiting and the only one in Connecticut listed. We are a P21 National District Exemplar, and this is for excellence in preparing students for success in college, work, and life in an ever-changing world community. On national and state level rankings, we consistently rank in the top 10 school districts in Connecticut, in U.S. or high schools in Connecticut, in U.S. News and World Reports, in the Washington Post and the Daily Beast. And we always want to highlight our excellent foundation in Farmington. The Farmington Public School Foundation is committed to a second innovative initiative grant at FHS and IAR for multimedia production labs. In 2016-17, or in the 2016-17 budget presented today, we are maintaining and advancing the implementation of the Board of Education's visionary 5-year goals, vision of the graduate, and mission. Chris Fagan highlighted these areas in his introduction of the budget presentation. These really are the themes of this year's budget. This is one data point of our increased need in special services. Again, this is just one example, but we are seeing an overall trend of increased need in special services support and programming across our school district. In addition, we have experienced a trend of additional students in need of special services occurring after our budget has been established and approved, putting a stress on our budget due to unanticipated needs and additional services required. Although we are experienced in increased student need in special services, this has caused it has caused the district to increase services and specialized programming. We continue to take a fiscally responsible approach to excellence in program development and services, as seen on this slide. The comparison of special services costs across districts. As with the town side of the budget, we are experiencing unknowns when it comes to state level funding. We are in contact with our elected officials and the Connecticut State Department of Education to advocate for the needs of our students here in Farmington and our district when it comes to state level grant funding. Excess cost grant funding and other state level grants we receive may experience reductions, and this would impact the school district's budget in the coming school year. This slide provides an overview of the reductions totaling over $1 million that have occurred in this budget in order to arrive at the approved budget level for 2016-17. This is a total reduction from the start of the budget process when principals are submitting their budgets. These cuts have caused us to postpone some improvements and reduce programming due to the current budget climate. And given the budget drivers of the 2016-17 budget, the school district has done our due diligence in making reductions to the budget to arrive at the 3.8% overall increase over the 2015-16 budget level. The first budget driver of the budget is salaries, and as you can see, this accounts for 67.69% of the total budget and reflects negotiated increases with our associations. The 100 series reflects a 3.59% increase over this year's budget. This is the second major budget driver, employee benefits. This account provides for 100% of expected paid claims and administration of our employee health insurance. We are proud to continue to experience employee health cost of health care services below the industry level. As I noted in an earlier slide, we rank 147 out of 169 towns in the cost of employee benefits, with one spending the most and 169 spending the least. You can see that life and long-term disability costs are on this slide as well. Stop-loss insurance increases due to a small number of catastrophic claims are the major driver of this year's increase in insurance. The 200 series accounts for 14.54% of our total budget. There is a 7.03% increase in this account. The 300 series includes varied items, public utilities, contract with Connecticut Natural Gas, professional development, energy savings through our joint board-town performance contract, and special education outplacements. The 300 series accounts for 14.15% of the total budget. It reflects a 4.54% increase, and special services is a major budget driver in the 300 series. The 400 supply series reflects a negative 1.85% decrease and accounts for 2.68% of the total budget. This account provides for facilities that we use for swimming and hockey competitions and for the purchase of a wide range of items such as instructional, health, custodial, computer, and testing supplies. This slide reflects the budget level for the 500 series, which is less than 1% of the total budget, or 0.54%. The 500 series reflects equipment requests. There is a negative 26.16% decrease for equipment, including technology equipment. We have successfully built a technology infrastructure and capacity over the last 6 years. Technology has become an everyday and profound tool for personalizing learning in Farmington. It is important to note that our technology plan, including vital technology for our students, will be postponed due to the reductions that we've made to this budget. Dues and fees are the last series, the 600 series. It reflects a negative 2.53% decrease. This includes memberships to organizations and liability and property insurance and accounts for 0.40% of the total budget. This slide is an overview of the Board of Education's 2016-17 budget and the overall budget total and percentage increase. We have made significant reductions to the budget to arrive at this 3.8% increase over the 2015-16 budget level. In Farmington, it is imperative that we continue to provide a world-class education that enables all students to achieve academic and personal excellence, exhibit persistent effort, and to live as resourceful, inquiring, and contributing global citizens. Farmington continues to lead the way in excellence in teaching and learning, as well as student outcomes and achievements. Our financial plan must support and advance these efforts. Our student, faculty, school, and school district accomplishments, our continuous improvement efforts, rigorous curriculum, and high-quality programming have contributed to a nationally recognized education here in Farmington. Given our expenditure rankings, we consistently show lower spending as compared to schools across Connecticut. Taken together, we are responsive both fiscally and in our commitment to excellence in education to our community and to our students. Each one of our students will someday help shape our local, national, and world community. Their education here in Farmington will prepare in them and develop in them the knowledge and skills outlined in our vision of the graduate, thus preparing them for a successful future. Thank you.
The grand list. The grand list is broken down into 3 categories: real estate, personal property, and motor vehicles. The real estate account shows for a 0.86% increase. The personal property account shows for a 6.78% increase, and the motor vehicles account shows for a 0.96% increase. In summary, the grand list increased by 1.2%, or $42,371,023, for a total grand list of $3,574,821,028. Some areas to note: the personal property increased by 6.78%. This is a significant increase and demonstrates the strong business environment in Farmington. Revenue, grants, charges, and others. Revenues have been broken down into categories that include other property taxes, license and permits, fines and penalties, interest, grants, service charges, other, and the Westwoods Golf Course contribution. Originally, I had projected non-tax revenues at $10,035,204, an increase of 0.61%. I am now recommending revenues at $9,535,204, which is a 4.41% decrease. Some areas to note: license and permits have been decreased 17.66%, mainly attributed to decreased building permit fees. The town had experienced a spike in building permit revenue over the past few years, which is now returning to a more normal levels. Other property taxes are projected to increase 8.9%, mainly attributed to supplemental motor vehicle taxes. This revenue account has been gradually increasing each year as more automobiles are being purchased. State and federal grants have been reduced by 9.6% in total. I originally proposed a 1.87% reduction, but recent state budget announcements has caused me to recommend to the town council further grant reductions. An additional $500,000 has been reduced for a total reduction of 9.60%. I'm continuing to recommend that some state revenue not be included in the budget in order to have a buffer for any additional changes that the state may make during their budget their budget process. Westwoods Golf Course contribution. As I've stated throughout this presentation, the Westwoods maintenance account has been added to the revenue portion of the budget to support the addition to the golf course maintenance expenses. The recommended general fund budget without modifications to the revenue section of the budget will require a property tax rate of 25.78 mils. This is an increase of 0.68 mils, or a 2.70% tax increase, which is an increase of $157.05. The chart on the screen shows the cost of the average homeowner with a house assessed at $232,074. The upcoming budget schedule. A few days to note: the annual town meeting is on Monday, April 25th at 7 p.m. at the high school, and the referendum vote is Thursday, May 5th, 2016 at your regular polling place. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Chris, for that information. At this time, I'm going to open it up for public comment for the public hearing, and this is public comment to just give your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes, and this is specifically about the budget. Whoever would like to address the council, please come up.
Hi, I'm Kristen Mock, 26 Farmstead Lane. This is a rare night where we're actually making public comment after we've heard some of your deliberations, which to me, honestly, is refreshing, because often the public is called to make public comment before we have any idea what we're commenting on, and that is very frustrating. Because to us, then I know it's not true, but to us it feels like what we do, we're speaking to a vacuum, and everything is done very arbitrarily without any of our input, because it seems like decisions are made before we come here. So again, tonight is the shift of order is a little bit refreshing to me personally. I am having a hard time understanding, we talk about how important it is to prioritize the cuts and how it's not one side versus another, it's not education versus town. We're prioritizing cuts and trying to make the best decisions for everyone. And I have a hard time understanding that, because we heard some recommendations for the town, but frankly, we don't have any idea what this means to the education side of the budget. When the Board of Education was required to cut from the last budget, most of us here attended that meeting, and it was quite painful. And there was only one person from the town council who attended that meeting, who saw the deliberations, saw what it was taking, the types of impact that this was making on our schools. For me, as a resident, as a mom, as being a member of this town, it's very frustrating. Again, it seems like decisions are being made in a vacuum because it does feel very arbitrary. You know, take this percent off, just X percent off, and we don't know how it's going to impact you. You know, make the decision that's best for education. But if you don't see the ramifications of that, if you don't attend both sides of the meeting, it's hard to see how that really impacts the town and really impacts education. So that's something that I know has been very frustrating to me, and I know that several other parents have expressed frustration with that as well. And I do think the one person from the town council who did attend that meeting and witnessed those deliberations. Again, we've heard some specifics about the town, what cuts could be made. I think before you give a number to the Board of Education side, it would be nice to hear what some of those specific programs or cost-cutting measures would be. And I would just like to reiterate, I know I've said this before, and I know most of the parents in this room have said this before, please just take what Kathy Greeter says. She's very, very good at her job. She's obviously very prudent about the way that she approaches her budget. She's so fiscally sound, and this town is able to accomplish more with less money than any of the surrounding towns, and I really applaud us for that. But I do just say, please, whatever she recommends, it's very thoughtful. It's not arbitrary. It's very thought out and well-reasoned, and it's something that we should pay attention to. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Other public comment?
Good evening. My name is Patricia Karwoski, and I live at 75 Tungus Village. I've been a resident of this town for over 50 years, and I even served 7 years on the TPZ. So I've sat through many budget hearings and budget meetings, and also recognize somewhat from having been on the TPZ the impact of the decisions made by the TPZ and the grand list and the monies that are generated. And I've spoken in the past about my concern about some of the decisions the TPZ have made, in that they have increased the services that the town needs to provide to the point where we're stressed, traffic considerations, loss of revenue, changing residential zone, back to a residential zone from a business zone a couple years ago. And just those are things that I am concerned about, and not following our plan of development. What I'm here to talk to tonight, though, was in relation to the article that was in the Hartford Courant on Sunday. Interestingly enough, I went to look for the article so I could bring it tonight, and I couldn't find it. And this is kind of funny. It was buried in the obituary section of the Sunday paper. So I kind of thought that was funny. Anyway, it's the budget hearing set for Monday, and that was the title of it. And in particular, something caught my eye, and that's why I wanted to come and ask. And it references town manager Kathy Fagan, initially responding to what her recommendation was. I said Kathy Fagan. I'm very sorry. Kathy Egan. Sorry. Kathy Fagan's a friend of mine who lives in town, and I do that all the time. When you're 75 years old, you have to cut me a little slack here. I apologize, Kathy. Anyway, Kathy said, had sent a letter, I guess, to the, this is a quote from the paper, to the council that the three main factors driving the budget are maintaining current service and capital funding levels, and funding townwide recreational programs. I'm okay so far with that, and you sort of covered that a little tonight. However, this is what I take issue with, and I would like to ask you to please comment on this a little further. The budget would allow the police department to hire an additional parole officer for traffic issues. Now, I have talked to the police captain, and a very reasonable man, and very young and responsible, and seems up on things. And I'm wondering, why do we go to the expense of hiring a patrol officer for just traffic issues? And let me give you an example. Again, today, I was by the construction site getting a cup of coffee at Truffles, and there were 3 policemen standing there, and there was 1 cruiser car and 3 policemen. And I'm wondering why, basically, we need 3 policemen to just stand there. I was trying to get out of Truffles to get on Route 4, which was almost an impossible task with the road being narrowed. I have spoken against the design that the state and the town have proposed for Route 4, and I do not see that we need to incur the extra costs of another patrol officer. If you're telling me a patrol officer to deal with crime issues in the town, which I know are underreported, we never see that much in the town, but every town has those issues. You're telling me that you safety issues, anything else, but I don't see the justification for adding an additional parole officer for traffic issues. In the past, traffic was done sometimes by auxiliary police officers or someone of a lesser salary who could direct traffic. And either this was misreported by the current, or if it's really what the intent was to add a position, I think it's entirely frivolous and unnecessary. And I know it's a little bit, and it's like micromanaging here in the scope of the big budget and all the cuts that poor Kathy's had to make in education. And by the way, there were four major areas where you cut out of the 7. That's quite a bit. So I think she does work miracles. But anyway, please look at that. Is that true, Kathy? I mean,
You're
may
at
I
5
address
minutes
you?
now.
Huh?
No, you're
I
at
cannot
5 minutes.
address her?
But we'll go through those questions later. We don't go back and forth. with
Okay. If you would check that out, because if it's a patrol officer for traffic issues, I strongly object, and I would hope that a lot of the citizens in the town might object to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Yes, sir. Just come up to the mic if you.
I'm the other half of this tag team operation. I'm John Karwowski from 75 Tunxus Village. We haven't been here quite 50 years yet. It's been a long time, but not quite 50 years. I have some questions with regard to the town's portion of the budget, and I think it's appropriate that they be asked, and I would hope that they would be addressed, and I would get a response. First of all, Pat's talk about the new patrol officer. I question the need for hiring a new regular patrol officer when, for traffic, we have used auxiliary police officers or retirees to handle traffic for construction projects. And I don't necessarily feel that that can't continue for this project, even though it's a much larger project than normally what we've been dealing with. But with regard to hiring people, one question with regard, is the town, other than this patrol officer, is the town hiring any new personnel in the coming fiscal year? And if they are, what positions are being filled, and what are the salary levels for these people? Another thing, to pick up on what the Board of Education's presentation was on their budget, they get a very detailed explanation of the various accounts and how much they impact the overall budget. I didn't get that same information from the town side of the budget. It would be nice to find out what percentage of the budget are fixed costs, such as labor contracts, benefits, things of that nature. I'd like to know how it's broken down in these areas, and how much of the town-side budget reflects these areas. And lastly, the Westwoods budget. I noticed in the proposed budget that you're changing the way you're kind of funding the expenditure side, and you're using general fund expenditures. I know for many, many years the town has been losing money with that golf course. I don't know why. I know weather has a lot to do with the golf course naturally, but after 15, 20 years of constant deficits, there's got to be some kind of analysis being done to determine how that course should pay for itself. Because when it was originally bought back in the early 70s, it was bought with the intent of being a self-sustaining operation. We set up a side fund to handle any excess revenue over expenditures, to deal with capital improvements. I know that seemed to disappear several years ago, and the explanation given to me then was unsatisfactory and never was made right. But I'd just like to know, what's the town going to be doing to kind of make that thing a more feasible operation and be self-sustaining like it was originally set up to be? And if, in fact, is this town still dealing the golf course as a separate account, or are you just mixing it up within the recreation budget? And if you are, that defeats the purpose of why the federal money was spent to create the golf course fund in the first place. So I'd like some answers to those questions, really exactly how this is laid out, how this is handled. Because it is, was purchased as a recreational facility. For many years it was generating a profit. It was considered to be a hidden gem. And I just wonder, is it being left to kind of be less than attractive than it has been over the years? And I think that the town will be the worse for it if they don't really take care of that course. So I'd appreciate the answers to some of these questions. If you need any further detail on what I asked and you didn't get it all, you can contact me. You know where to find me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. We'll get you those answers.
Joanne Lawson, 9 Prattling Pond Road. I had a couple questions. I also was confused about the Westwoods Golf Course and whether we're going to be subsidizing it now, when I think the old budgets used to have revenue and cost equal out. So it was just confusing to me in the exhibits. Also on the number of teachers, I'm sorry I didn't have all the new numbers. That must have come out over the weekend or something, because I was looking last week. I see that you've cut some salary from the teachers in the Board of Ed budget, but I was wondering where the teacher cuts came from. Maybe that's all provided somewhere else. And when I was trying to figure out what was going on, if there were any changes in the budgets, I saw a note that the special ed, you were increasing the number of teachers, but actually it was a reclassification from an IDEA grant that's now gone. So I wasn't sure whether that was really a change or just was something that had been moved, and I wasn't able to follow it through the hundreds of pages of budget work that you guys did, which, by the way, thank you very much for all that work. And then, of course, I'm very concerned with the state in such dire straits. How is that going to impact us, and are we ready for that? Thanks.
Thank you.
Stephen K., 57 Garden Gate. As always, I want to begin by thanking you for the countless hours that you put in, and the board as well. I can't sit still for the few minutes that I'm watching you. As you know, I speak passionately when I come up here, but I always try to back up everything that I say with evidence. In the past, I've presented database research on full-day kindergarten, and then again on the benefits of foreign language. When I most recently spoke, I referenced last year's March 11th meeting where we could see it on Nutmeg television at 1 hour, 25 minutes, where a promise was made to continue foreign language. And I appreciate, on behalf of the students, I guess, that you honored that promise and supported the database research. So thank you to the board and the town council for that. However, I continue to be frustrated over the fact that we don't invest in children the way that we used to. Nancy, you referenced that people continue to move here for their education. I moved here about 10 years ago, and at that time, we were averaging for the previous 10 year, and you know, Nancy, because you were the chair of the Board of Ed, 6.4%, and in the past 10 years, we've increased at 3.1%, and it's impacting the children. We heard how technology is being put off. We don't have gifted and talented programs for young children, and so many of the other programs that other towns offer. So I guess in closing, I urge you to continue to support the children, support the schools, and provide for both what we're doing with regard to things like full-day kindergarten and foreign languages, but also look at the things that our superintendent recommends. When the board comes to us at a 4.37% increase, and it's already a reduction from what she's recommending, it's forcing cuts. it's very difficult to look at the expansions and see what's happening now compared to what was happening 10 years ago. So as we move forward, I urge you to support the Board of Education and our superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again, Beth Kittner, 24 Farmstead Lane. I feel like it's another day already. So I wanted to ask a question, or just bring up an issue that I think needs some clarity when we talk about the educational cost sharing grant. I think the public deserves some clarity on it, particularly those folks who aren't in discussions or at Board of Education meetings, at town council meetings during budget time and hearing this terminology. But it's my understanding this money comes from the state as aid to cities, towns, municipalities to support what they spend on education. We all know it doesn't come anywhere near what we spend on education, and we know that there's issues with the formula, but comes from the state to municipalities for educational expenses. And yet the funds don't come directly to the schools, in Farmington anyway. And so I think when we talk about sharing the burden, and we're not going to have the burden of these cuts come 100% from the schools, we would never do that. I think when you talk about how you're going to remedy these ECS cuts in that way, it's a bit misleading to the public. And if residents are suggesting, and Mr. Landry, you mentioned residents suggesting to their elected officials maybe that the council needs to reduce the school budget 100% of these cuts, I think that just shows that those folks are misinformed, and there needs to be some education going on with constituents or residents of the town about kind of how that works. And I know education is in there, but it's not clear to folks how that actually works, kind of in the accounting of things in the town budget. And we talked about the town working together, school side and town side. I think that's really important. I think that's one of the reasons why we're able to do so much with so little here, and that's definitely definitely needed in any municipality. So I guess I'm confused about where we're looking to make up these cuts. It seems to me that the town council should be looking for areas where it's going to cause the least harm to the community. And that may be more on the town side, it may be more on the school side, it may be more in capital, more in operating, but aren't we supposed to be just looking at the big picture and what's best for the town and the residents? You had the town manager mention $300,000 from a fund for a parking lot that we're not going to likely do in the very near future. And I don't think you took it. I think you want to stick hard and fast to 50-50. That was my understanding of the discussion. So I don't understand that. To say that that's the most fair way to do it, I'm really having a difficulty seeing the fairness there. So, the state also funds other things for our town. The superintendent mentioned this evening the excess cost grant. I don't know why they would ever name a grant with the same acronym, but we can't keep asking some of these questions. We'd be here for quite a long time. So the excess cost grant, which helps the Board of Education, that comes directly to the schools for whatever reason. That's the way it's set up. And there are other state grants and programs that support the town school budget. The superintendent's expressed some concern that we don't know, given what's going on in the state, if those monies are going to be affected, eliminated, reduced. I don't think at that point, if that were to happen, that the town would share in the cost of those reductions if the superintendent needs to, and the board needs to figure out how to deal with those. So just some clarity there. I think it's important for the public to understand how that all works. Thank you.
Thank you.
You thought you got rid of me? Liz Fitzsimmons, 6 Bella Lane in Unionville. For full disclosure, I am a member of the Board of Education here in Farmington, but I'm speaking to you as a parent tonight. One of the reasons that I moved to Farmington was before my children even started school. So we researched the towns, and we loved Farmington for the schools. But very quickly, I became involved with coming to the town council meetings, and started attending pretty much all of them, and the Board of Education meetings as well. And it became apparent to me that the Board of Education and the town council were different in Farmington in that they worked well together. There was something special about Farmington in that the schools and the town had this great symbiotic relationship. The Public Works Department was great with the schools, and the police department worked well with the schools. The fire department worked well with the schools. Everything seemed to really mesh really well. And yes, tonight you are faced with a difficult decision, one unlike anything that I've ever seen in all of the budget deliberations that I've been involved with for many years here in Farmington, on the sidelines as the president of Farmington Future before being on the Board of Education. But as a parent, I would like to know that the town council is going to do the right thing for the town, for everyone in the town, the students, and all of the citizens, those that have children in the school system and those that don't. And if that means that Kathy Egan came to you tonight and said, look, I have this money that I just had set aside for a parking lot, and it isn't even a project that I was going to do. And oh, by the way, earlier this week or today or yesterday, Joe and I found $30,000. I think as a town council, you should say, you know what, maybe that's the right money to use when we're faced with these emergency situations because our state is a mess. Now this education cost sharing grant has the word education in it, but it is money that comes to the town. And as John Vibber pointed out, when the extra money that was given by the state came to the town council a few years ago, the extra money came to the town council and the town took it in. And the town has one budget. It's one budget document. And that budget is presented at the town meeting as one whole document. And the town on May 5th is going to vote on one document. It is the budget for the town and the schools. And it's not like we're going and we're voting for the schools, and then we go and we vote for the town. And if one fails, then, oh, too bad, you're on your own. So we are together in this. Much like when I didn't live here when the referendum was for Westwood's upper elementary school, but a few years later, I did live here when we found some extra money. Well, the town took that money. It wasn't put aside for special Board of Education fund. The town took it. It's a symbiotic relationship, and we're all here to help each other. So, and that's what I love about this town, and I know that I can trust that my children are going to grow up in this town, and I hope they want to live in this town. And I hope everybody, whether they have kids in this town or not, feel the same way, and that you're going to do the right thing, whether it's 50-50 or not, whether it's 70-30 or not. But the right thing for the entire budget document should be done. And I trust that you'll do that. So thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment?
Hi, Nora Benanti, 26 Tall Timbers. I'm going to be a little bit repetitive, but I wanted to make sure there was one more voice in support of our superintendent and the town's Board of Ed budget in this discussion. I've been watching the discussion over the past few months, and it's left me a little baffled, a little disappointed by the process. It does seem like in many ways, decisions have to get made before all the information has actually been presented. People have to comment before they really know what they're commenting on. And I know, so it was good to hear the suggestion from Kathy Egan on the $330,000 potential that could come from the town side of the budget. But we don't know what the impact of potential cuts on the Board of Ed side would mean. And so it feels like a decision would be made without really knowing all of the pieces. For those of you town council members that weren't at the Board of Ed meeting back in March, where they had to make the decisions to make some cuts already, as it was mentioned, it was painful. And it left me wondering where extra money would come from out of that side of the budget without impacting students. So I was kind of dismayed. I was dismayed to hear that some town council members are not willing to look at small mill rate increases as a way to deal with some of this uncertainty and what might be coming to Farmington from the state. It seems a little unwise to have a blanket opinion like that before all the information is available. We talked about fluidity earlier and how the process is fluid at this point and probably will be fluid for a while. But there's certain things that aren't fluid, especially in the Board of Ed budget. Things like hiring new teachers. We can't wait till September to know whether or not certain funds are coming from the state. So I guess I just wanted to say I hope that the town council takes some of that into consideration, really tries to understand how their decision would impact specifics in the Board of Ed budget before they make their decision. And I hope that we take into consideration our superintendent's suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Yes, sir.
Arthur Rumpf on 127 Lovely Street in Unionville. I just want to mention a couple of line items and quickly looking at the budget, just to maybe highlight them as to take a second look at them. I know the golf course has already been mentioned once as a losing proposition to the tune of about $90,000 under, it's supposed to be, the budget from what I see is a break-even budget for both the golf course and for the rec budget, but they're losing and they consistently lose. So the question becomes really what needs to be done there to be realistic about it. In the education budget, in the 300 series, there are two line items that seem to be seriously over budget. That's in the consulting services. Don't know all the details behind it. It just, the numbers seem to be out of line. There might be a justified need. I don't know. I just don't have the details on it. And also the summer-specific programs. There's another item under there that's also considerably over the budget. The $4 million for the capital roads, I understand it's going for bond, but it seems like it's a big chunk of money all in 1 year, and then there's nothing for 4 years. It's just concerning is how much work is it realistic that all of that can be done in that time? Is this all destined to be spent in 1 year, or is this destined to happen over more than 1 year? So, you know, I just don't know the details behind it, but certainly with the weather impacting both the golf course and road construction, just something that I'm sure has been looked at, but maybe a second look might be in order. And last but not least, a very small item. I know we already talked about hiring the additional patrol officer, but there's one item in there, a speed sign trailer for $30,000. Certainly, that's something that's, my experience has been it's generally useless. People just ignore it. And secondly, I see it in other towns where those speed signs are just sitting in parking lots in the town parking lot. It's not being used all the time for whatever reason. Maybe this is something in discussion that we can have as shared type of thing with the town, so that if they're not using it, we could use it versus going out and buying one. Again, a small item, but these small items add up. So I just saw those quick items real fast, and you might want to take a second look at those items. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Okay, then we'll close the public hearing. And as you know, we were going to move the agenda item up, the N1, so we will be doing that next, but before we do that, we're going to take a break. Okay, we're back, and I'm first, some of the people left. I'm first going to ask Kathy to respond to some of the questions that were asked.
I'll just quickly go through it, and I know that Karwoski's left. I'll
Yeah,
reach out to them
okay,
separately,
thank you.
too. Yeah, so just a couple things is that, as you guys all know up on here, is that the new police officer is really not the police officer that's going to be the traffic person on Route 4. It's, this is based on a strategic plan. Traffic is our #1 issue in town, and this would be a community officer who would be involved in the neighborhoods, running the traffic review board, helping with enforcement on neighborhood streets, because as you know now, when someone is doing enforcement, they have to go to calls for service and different things. This would be their primary job. The other thing to note is just someone mentioned about the traffic sign. These are going to be smaller traffic signs that, again, will go in the neighborhoods. And just, I can tell you that we get requests for the traffic sign all the time. So our traffic sign won't be sitting in a parking lot. It's not that big traffic sign. So that's what the idea is, the enforcement in neighborhoods, and it's a special projects person. The other thing is that that we do have a seasonal inspector, 8-month for temporary to do help with all the development in town. It's not a full-time position, it's an 8th-month position, and it's only a temporary position for a period of probably 3 years. We also have our part-time land consultant, which is, again, a part-time person who helps us with our land. So that's in the budget, but there's no other full-time people. Lastly, we talked about the golf course. The golf course we have changed based on our recreation policy. We all know is that we are going to be putting the overhead and the personnel into the operating budget, and then we're treating the rest of the golf course like we treat all the other recreation programs. As in one of the slides that I did show, we are supplementing the golf course $43,000, which again on a $26 million budget is a very small supplement from the operating budget. The other thing that was mentioned about the golf course losing money, the golf course has consistently has lost money, and one of the reasons why we had our new recreation policy and why we changed things to do it this way was because of the fact that our golf course is run with our full-time employees being there year-round, because we use them in the winter months for snowplow operations, and we use them in the highway garage. Thus, we run a yearly operation at the golf course, where a regular private golf course would lay off their people. Our golf course people go to our highway department. We'd be using those if we didn't have them in the golf course, we'd need 2 extra people in the highway department. So that is part of the golf course, and we have restructured it. So that was the questions on that. And then the other thing I just wanted to make note, the roads. This is a bonding, and we'll plan on doing the roads over probably a 4-year period of time. And that question was asked. And the last thing was, I just wanted to make clear, I know what I said, but just to be clear about the parking lot that it's not going to be done in a bunch of years out. The intent was to get the parking lot done in this construction season, but as you asked me about something that we could do, that would be something that I think would be reasonable. And lastly, about the workers' comp, it wasn't that we found the money recently. The wording was, I just want to make sure that's clear. It was that our renewal just came in. So our renewal came in, and that was our new renewal. So I wanted to make sure that wasn't all of a sudden we just found the workers' compensation money. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And I think that was it for the questions that I know.
Yep. Okay, well, thank you. And you will get a letter out to the Karwoskis then and respond?
Yep, I
Thank
will.
you. That's great.
Yep.
And I just have to say, Kathy always does a great job of responding and sending letters out to people that come for public comment, and that's really something that I appreciate, we appreciate as a council, and so does the community, Kathy. Okay, before we go into our next making the motion, I just want to make a few comments. And one of them, first of all, I'll start with the meeting. I'm sorry?
Do you want us to answer those questions?
No, not right now. We will. First of all, I want to say that as far as watching it on TV or coming to the meeting, many of us are on 6 and 7 and more committees and community service events here. And that is one of the reasons why I so appreciate having you on TV, because a number of us watch that again and again and again. You're meeting the BOE on TV, and we do get a flavor then of what's going on and how difficult it is. And actually, a number of us have been on the Board of Education and know how difficult it is through years and through ups and downs, whether it was a 6% budget at one time and it was a 1% budget at one time. I mean, we've been through those years and those difficulties, so many of us have seen that firsthand. I have to say that the continued comment about the superintendent and doing what the superintendent asks, I know this, I think I can speak for this council, has full confidence in our superintendent. And there's nothing else that needs to be said other than that we have confidence. And there are going to be times where we have differences of what we think can be done, but there's no time that I don't have confidence in our superintendent to do good things for the town. And lastly, I just want to say that I think everybody up here, and I think everybody on the Board of Education, and I'll say that, does what they believe are the right things to do. And to say, I think whether we all have differences of opinion from time to time, and I think one of the key things that we need is to have respect for one another and one another's opinion. And I think that I have to say everybody on this council takes things so seriously and so heartfelt. So I think we all try to do what we think is the right thing. And we may have differences of opinion, and that is going to happen, but I feel that's an important thing that we all look to try to do. So with that said, let's move on to bringing N1, the motion up.
This is item N1, and the motion is to approve the town council's recommended budget for the fiscal year 2016 to 2017.
Second.
Okay, now, in light of the hour and a half that we spent prior to this meeting in discussions about how we took what we're now knowing is a $500,000 hit from the state on our education cost-sharing grants, we're going to have to amend this. So just so people know where I'm going with this, is I have two amendments, okay?
And the reason, as Meredith is saying, I meant to explain that too, that this was the motion that was in our packet, so that's what we're moving, but then we're going to make the changes through amendments, and then in the end, we will make a motion to completely move forward the budget.
Right, so
Okay.
just so you know where I'm going, I have two amendments, but I think we need to vote on each separately.
Yes, we do.
Okay, and the first amendment is the reduction of revenues. So I move to amend the motion by reducing revenues as follows. To reduce the pilot state-owned properties by $73,000 for a total of $3,086,385.
Wait.
No. That would be the, yeah. We're reducing pilot state-owned properties by $73,000.
Okay.
The second part of this revenue reduction amendment is to reduce the education grants by $427,000. Okay, that's going to make that line item $1,181,846. This moves the total revenue line. So now our new total revenues amount is $9,535,204. So we're reducing the pilot and the education grants.
And that's the 500,000. Joe, are those numbers right? Okay.
Give me a second.
Second.
Discussion. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Okay, I have a second amendment to our initial budget, and what we're facing is a $500,000 reduction from the state that none of us want to take, and my recommendation is to do it all in capital. So the motion is as follows. To amend the motion by reducing the capital improvement budgets as follows. $300,000 from town hall renovations, and $200,000 to be determined by the Board of Education, for a total capital improvements appropriation of,
Hold on.
hang on,
Joe, correct my numbers. 2,856,900.
$2,856,900. And that's the $500,000 reduction.
That's it.
Is that right?
Yep.
We need a
That's it.
second.
Second.
And what percentage does that
Madam
put us
Chair?
at, Joe? Yep, I just want to get the number.
I'm sorry,
What is a percentage then of the,
The expenditures.
expenditures overall would be an increase of 3.11%. Town budget stays the same at 4.09. Board of Ed stays the same at 3.8. Capital budget is now a decrease of 11.66%. And debt service stays the same as a 0.13% increase. So the overall budget would be a 3.11% increase.
Expenditure.
Expenditures, right?
okay. Thank you. John?
I'd like to make a motion to amend that motion. I would like to see the $30,000 taken out of the town's operating budget, understanding that we know it's going to be $30,000 less. So it doesn't seem to me that it makes any sense to leave it in there. So what I would do is to amend that motion by decreasing the town's operating budget by $30,000, by decreasing the town's capital projects by $300,000, and by decreasing the Board of Education's capital projects by $170,000.
A second.
Discussion.
So I'll start in the discussion. If we know that the operating budget is going to be $30,000 less, I would say we start there. It's the easiest cut we can make, money we don't have to pay. Then we start getting into more painful things. I think that delaying the monies for the parking lot, even though it's easy to do, is still going to make it, it's still painful. And so it doesn't mean that we don't get a new parking lot, our parking lot's going to be delayed. So, but I'm okay with that. And that leaves the remainder of the 500,000 at 170, and I'm okay with making that a line item in the Board of Education's capital plan and letting the Board of Education decide how those monies get dispersed.
Other comments?
I think, well, I'm just trying to think this through. I think there are probably places in the Board of Ed's operating that would be apparent too if we had the opportunity to ask them, which we don't, which is frustrating. So, yeah, I just feel like the one thing that struck me, what Kathy Egan said, is let's do the least damage and inflict the least amount of pain by taking out from where we can most easily put back in. And that's what I'm thinking in terms of capital. That's what she said. It's easier to put back in if we stick to capital. And for me, it's a rather clean thing to do at this point, knowing that we spent a really long time talking about flexibility. And if the numbers turn out different in any way for anybody, we can revisit the allocation. That's what I'm thinking.
Other comments?
So I agree with
John,
Julia.
I agree.
Go ahead, John.
As a follow-up to what Meredith said, I also know that if within the Board of Education's budget, there's probably $30,000 that would be quote unquote found, even though it's not really found. I know that the Board of Education pre-spends at the end of the fiscal year. In the 5 years that I served on the Board of Education, we went through a pre-spending exercise all 5 years, and it was it was more than $30,000, over $100,000 in 1 year. So, at any rate, I think we could probably find it all over the place. I feel comfortable with sticking with just capital. It keeps it clean. It keeps it easy to bring it back, as we talked about it being fluid, and I think it's a sound decision to take a clean cut from capital on both sides.
John?
So I would just say I agree that capital improvement projects are the easiest thing to add back in So I think we really need to concentrate on there, because we just don't have time to go through all the details. But when the town manager's coming to us and saying, here's $30,000 we're not gonna spend, we know we're not gonna have to put that back in. It's real easy not to put it back in. And therefore, I would take that small amount that we know is not gonna be spent, take it out of the budget because we know it's not gonna be spent, and concentrate on it with a capital plan after that, and that makes it easy to put back in, just as you were saying, if those monies are restored.
Kathy, do you see money or possibilities in the council budget as a whole, possibilities that things may change before the end of the year? Flexibilities up or down?
In the budget we're living in now?
And next year, the one you're proposing?
Sure.
So even though that this, at this moment, the 30,000 there is you've come in at, in one line item, are there possibilities in the rest of the budget as we move forward that it could change? I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand, and I understand your point exactly. I mean, again, we got our renewals for this, and we were in a positive direction. We're going to probably get renewals in some other things. It may not be. Our budget is still fluid, too. May not be positive. We may have a big snowplow year next year, and we may need that 30,000, so it may not be returned, or it could be returned. But right now, the information we have, we got the renewal, and there's the $30,000. But again, it's a fluid document next year, too.
And if the renewal had come in January, would the workers' compensation line item be $30,000 less?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Other comments?
I'm going to just reiterate what Meredith and John said. I like the cleanliness of this, of doing it out of capital. We can restore it if we need to do it in that. I don't want to go getting into our operating budgets right there. Leave it there. If there's savings that can be used in other departments that are running over, so be it, we use it there. I'm sure we could find money in the operating budget of the Board of Education, probably pretty easily too if we had to. All right, I'd rather keep it at capital and be done with it. I'm not in favor of going into start cherry picking all kinds of other stuff right now.
Any other comments?
I want us all to continue talking to our state reps and state senators and putting the pressure on, because none of us want to be here tonight, and we all want to be putting this money back into capital if that's how we vote. So we need to convey that we are not happy, and this pressure needs to continue.
And I think that's a fabulous point for anybody who's still sitting here or people who might be watching this on TV later. This is not final. You know, there's still an opportunity to have this entire exercise tonight be moot if these funds are restored.
And it's not only our job, but it's the public's job. If you are not happy and you convey it to your state rep and your our state senator, and you convey that maybe Farmington took a much harder hit than other towns, and that might not be fair. Speaking up matters, and it does get impact, so we ask everyone to help us.
And also, I would like to, the idea and the thoughts that we talked about before about this being a fluid document, even with this moving forward, I absolutely want to mention that we're hopeful that we don't get the reductions that we think we're going to, and we can put money back in your capital and put some money away for the parking lot as well. We'd love to do that and reinstate that, your capital as well, because we didn't increase the capital to what we did for naught. We did that for reasons, and particularly these years before we come to the sewer or the high school. I mean, we really wanted to do those things, and I feel badly but I think the opportunity to have the fluidity in your capital as well, and Kathy Egan's, and the reason not going to your operating, which, you'll see savings just like Kathy does when you're getting these negotiations. With electrical now, you're seeing some savings, and we're not going to go there. Your budget's going to be a fluid one as well, and you're going to have the ups and downs. So we'll let that lie. And I just so hope that we're not sitting here in another month looking at more reductions. And if we are, we're going to work together to make things work in the best way we can for kids and for families who don't have kids and for everybody in the town. So hopefully not more to come on that issue. But as Amy said, please call, and anyone that's watching, call your representatives and tell them how you feel and that Farmington should have representation to support budgets and support the dollars that are here. So, okay, any other comments? All those in favor say,
Of this, John's amendment.
John's amendment.
I'm
What's
sorry.
first?
Paula?
We're voting on John's and Amy's amendment now.
Okay. Okay, all set? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Poll the board, or council, excuse me. Nay.
Aye.
Nay.
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 Okay. That?
Now,
Back to the original.
No, back to your amendment.
The original amendment,
Yep.
which was $300,000 from town hall renovations, $200,000 to be determined by the Board of Education, for a $500,000 reduction of the capital budget.
okay, any discussion on this now? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Joe, we go to the end now?
Now we have to vote on,
Now you have to vote on the motion.
now you
Right.
vote on the motion.
And the motion, again, is to approve the town council's recommended budget for the fiscal year 2016-2017 as amended.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay,
You're done.
okay. We're done with that. Now, we're going into the rest of our meeting. You're welcome to leave.
Initial agenda.
Have a good evening.
We've all lost our agenda like.
I don't have,
I know.
I don't actually have an agenda.
You want me to have Paul, Erica make another copy?
Well, there's got to be one out there somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
No, you know what, I have it, here it is.
Okay, we are now going to
Minutes.
public comment.
Oh, no, public.
Regular public comment.
There's going to be nobody left.
You in a hurry?
I'm giving it a minute.
I'm making an observation.
Thank you. Okay, there is no public comment. Reading of the minutes, March 8th.
All right, I move to accept the minutes of the March 8th, 2016 regular town council meeting.
Second.
Any corrections or changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Next, March
I
9th.
move to approve the March 9th, 2016 special town council meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion or changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? March 12th.
10th.
Oh, 10th, I'm sorry.
I move to approve the March 10th, 2016 special town council meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I move to approve the minutes of the March 12th, 2016 special town council meeting.
Second.
Discussion or changes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Reading of communications. Kathy.
You have the 3 communications that are in your packet. You also received a few correspondence today regarding the budget, and you also received another correspondent from Mr. King. Just so you know, based on, I think, what he wrote in his correspondence, I did send his correspondence to the political parties, and he did comment on that in his letter. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, report of committees. Yukon Committee, no report. Land acquisition.
Nothing new to report.
Green efforts.
I just want to, again, remind everybody that there's 2 things that are happening. They're being sponsored by the Green Efforts Committee. The first is the April 30th Farmington Cleanup Day, where we'll have people out throughout the community helping pick up trash along our streets and our trails and so forth. I would also like to make sure people remember about the composting bins that we will be selling through the month of May. Basically, what's happened is that we've negotiated a discounted price through a vendor who sells compost bins. The bins will cost $50. You will have information on the website as well as information at the Farmington Cleanup Day, which will allow people to order bins throughout the month of May, and those will be delivered in the first weekend in June. So if anybody needs any information, go out to the website or give me a call.
Great, thank you. Joint Town of Farmington, City of Hartford.
Nothing to report on.
Bike Advisory.
So the Bike Advisory Committee is going to be meeting this Thursday, but just to let everybody know, what we're basically doing is continuing to identify municipal roads which are safe for biking. So we've already put signage up on River Road and a few others. We're looking to do Coppermine.
Okay. Farmington Gateway.
In the town manager's report, we'll go through that in detail.
Okay. Webpage.
The webpage subcommittee will be meeting tomorrow at 6:30. The meeting was rescheduled from tonight at 6 o'clock due to the special town council meeting. We're in the final stretch, so we anticipate having a presentation for the town council at our April 28th? 26th.
Yep.
April 26th meeting. So look forward to that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Farmington High Renovation Committee.
The RFP for architectural schematics is out, and while our last meeting was canceled, while we're waiting for responses to come back, but the next meeting is scheduled for April 20th at 4:30 in the afternoon in the Farmington High School Library.
Okay, thank you. Report of the council chair and liaison. The first thing I'd like to say is that I saw a lot of bulk pickup out for this week, and people are delighted. And I'm happy to say that it's been received well again. It was in October, and the numbers of people going around and checking out bulk pickup is amazing. So glad it's received so well in town and we were able to do it again. The other thing I wanted to report on is the Unionville Bridge. And I know we've had some conversations about that and the fact that Kathy said it's going to be painted. There's going to be a meeting in April to talk about it being on the list and also to talk about the color. So we are going to have a conversation about the color of the bridge, and I just wanted to make sure that the public knew that as well. So we'll be discussing that. And that's it for today. Board of Ed.
The Board of Ed met last week to go over, to adjust their budget for the
council change.
the council changes, sorry. It's a long night. So, anyway, that's really about it over on the Board of Ed side.
Thank you.
Kathy.
UVIA.
I just wanted to note that UVIA is in the process of putting together its newsletter that comes out twice a year. And so every resident in Farmington and Unionville will get a copy, and it's got a lot of great stuff in it, but one of the things that it will have in it is the schedule for the summer movie series.
Oh,
so
right.
that's something to keep a lookout for.
Awesome.
Thank you. Great. TPZ.
Nothing new to report.
WPCA.
WPCA is having its regular meeting at the town hall upstairs on this Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
Okay. EDC. Economic Development.
Nothing to report on.
No. Human Relations. Amy.
We're next meeting on April 25th at 6:30 at the Community Center.
Okay. Chamber.
A couple weeks ago, the Chamber had their pizza tasting contest at Farmington Gardens, and it was, I believe, the 3rd annual, and it was very, very well attended. It was the biggest audience that they have had in a long time, and there's a reason for it, because it's really good, and it's a lot of fun. So,
Who won?
you know what? They actually, they at the last minute, they pulled it being a contest, and so it was just an open, so nobody wa-
No
because-
competition.
No competition, because George's Pizza had won year after year. So at any rate, they're going to revisit that next year and possibly make it a contest again. But I highly recommend looking out for it next year. They raised a lot of money for Farmington High School scholarships, and it was a lot of fun.
Great.
Sausage and pepperoni from
Okay. Any other liaison reports? Okay, report of the town manager. Kathy?
You have the written report in front of you. Just a reminder, it doesn't feel like it today, but Memorial Day is right around the corner. So the parade is going to step off in Unionville at 8 a.m., or 8:30, I'm sorry, and the Farmington section is at 10:30. So our parade. As you know, there's been some press and there's been some action. Our Route 4 project has started again on the Parsons Curve, so they are out working. We have tried to keep the public informed as much as possible about that. And the day we were supposed to start, it snowed, so they didn't start, but they are back out there again. So I just wanted to let you know that.
And it was April.
And it was right. You have the quarterly reports in front of you, and as you can see, it's our standard procedure. We have the beginning part are the town manager goals, and then behind the town manager goals is the various attachments that go along with the goals. So as you can see, we do have somewhere near 30 different goals that we're reporting on. I think there's a lot of good information here. We tried to put together a report that was concise and give you all information about each one of the departments doing, what I'm doing. I don't know if you have any particular questions about it that I could answer.
Yeah, I have a couple. And
Okay.
Amy, go ahead.
I just had
Go
actually
first.
one comment that you may want to add in here, because I know you're doing it, is for a 2.2. Since we're now putting RFP out for the Five Corners area with the Gateway Commission,
Yep.
it's not in there, and I know it's something that there's going to be town resources put to that, and you're going to be working on it, unless I missed it. But
I think it's 2.2 number 1.
2.2 number 1. Needs
Gateways.
for Farmington Committee to move, receives appropriate staffing, but you don't notice, there's a lot noted on Parsons, but nothing on Five Corners. I just wanted to make sure that
Okay.
that you sort of got credit for,
Sure.
because I know that now the town planner and Rose are going to be putting their efforts into
Sure.
that too.
Yep.
You don't have to, I
Yep.
just,
No,
I just want,
thank you.
actually looking out for you, Kathy.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah.
Is it
It's in the
it's
back,
mentioned
in
in-
the backup, it's in there too, yeah.
Anything else? I have a couple questions.
Sure.
On goal 9,
Hold on, okay.
and this has to do with the sidewalks from Depot Place to Keene Place.
Yep.
One of the things that we talked about, and I know Kathy, because we visited Westerly,
Yep.
but was to have some kind of a plan for people, once this starts,
Yep.
to be able to get to the wheelchairs
Yep.
and anyone who has any other, well, wheelchair, whatever else they need. But getting down Plainville Avenue, we talked about having a way that they could get back and forth, because they're not going to be able to do that once it's started. So I know you already had said you would look into it, but I just wanted to make a comment about it because it wasn't listed
No,
here,
that's
all.
a good point, because I know that Matt and Russ has coordinated with the New Horizons in Westerly, but I'm not sure exactly what the plan is, so that's why it's not listed here.
Okay.
So let me find out what
Okay.
that is.
And just that we make sure we let them know
Yep,
at Westerly or
absolutely.
New Horizons
Yep.
what alternatives they have,
Yep.
so they're not without transportation or a way to get down, back
Yep.
and forth.
That's
So
a good point, thank you.
They're aware that it's coming. Matt came to the last Human Relations Commission meeting, which was at New Horizons, and we talked a lot about when it's going to be and, keeping them informed and the like. So they know it's coming, but there is no plan. I don't know if there's a plan.
I know that they were working
There-
on
yeah.
various things, that they were gonna do
'Cause-
a shuttle or a bus or
Right.
something. I have to track back with that.
Because when we
Yeah.
went last year, as you're
Yeah.
saying, Amy, with
Yeah.
New Horizons,
Yeah.
Westerly, they talked about it as well, but I just don't know what
I don't think
it
there was a
is.
plan to, it
Yeah.
was more like for this chunk of
Conversation.
time, you might not be able to.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, we'd rather a better
Okay.
scenario.
Let me try and find out.
Okay, and goal 10. This was the Plan of Conservation Development,
Yep.
starting in 2017. the update is due to the State Office of Public by February 2018. So we're going to be starting this in next year, is that
Well, we're
the
starting.
new plan? or
We're
the new-
starting parts of it now, so we're starting, different things, like you can see.
It says
it's
April
e-
2016, so, I mean, down here to start it, so I just wondered.
Yeah.
So we are.
Yeah, we are beginning the whole process of it, but it's not due until 18, but it's a long process, and some of the things that are mentioned ahead of it is sort of like gearing up to start going. And so I think he's talking to the TPZ, what the requirements are, what they have to do, and that's going to start now. That's what he's planning on doing. And then we're going to start moving, and they have a time frame to have it complete by 2018.
Okay.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Kathy, on the cemetery committee,
What goal is that?
10,
Okay.
is this pretty much dead in the water now, or we need to work through legislators to?
What it is that I think we have done every other avenue except for a conveyance, to do a conveyance. And so what Liz is doing, Liz Dolphin, our land consultant, is putting a timeline working backwards, because the conveyance bill is going to be up, it's going to happen very soon again. Well, it's not that soon, but it's just going to be upon us. So we are now going to start working towards when the conveyance bill is at the state to put this property in the conveyance bill.
Oh, put it in there,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Kathy, on the same goal, it appeared as though the state, the DEEP, was reluctant to be releasing those properties.
Yes, that's correct.
Are we working on some sort of a backup plan? Or if they don't put it in the conveyance bill, we can still have a cemetery?
Yeah, we have some different pieces of property that we've looked at. We have not really found one that we consider ideal. So when we say about a backup plan, we do have different pieces of land. None of them are really that ideal, but I think when we start working backwards with the conveyance, I'll probably have an update again about a backup plan, because, again, I don't think any of the properties that we have, the Liz and the cemetery group went and looked at different properties, and then we kind of evaluated them, and none of them seemed ones that I would say were the best. So I think we're going to struggle with finding another piece, but we're going to still attempt to try.
Excuse me, 34, which is the Rails to Trails to Plainville.
Yeah.
I know it's starting this summer, and maybe I missed it, but do you have any idea how long it's going to take, or is it kind of unknown right now,
think
depending on?
No, there's an end date in here. I
There's
just,
an end date
Okay,
somewhere.
thank
it's
you.
actually
I didn't-
shockingly soon. Let me see if I can find it.
Oh, maybe it's in your goals, Kathy, the end date.
Here it is. The project, let's see. Completed September 2017.
Oh, okay.
I think we did it in the front one, too, because it's a dual goal,
Yeah,
so.
okay, thank you. That's it for me. Anything else, anybody? Okay. On that note, let's have a motion to approve the town manager's report.
I move to approve the town manager's report.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. I don't have any appointments today. Any? Okay. Any old business? New business, we'll move to N2.
All right, I move to approve the attached resolutions for the annual town meeting, items number 1 through 8 on agenda item N2.
Second.
This is for our annual town meeting.
Okay. Just get to my,
Since we just amended, are these?
You don't have to, because we don't put budget numbers in.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
okay, I'm sorry, let me just get to my,
But the
Annual.
grants are correct?
okay, any other,
Oh, okay, got it.
It's N1.
Oh, it's in one, got it.
And N2.
And 2. I think we're good.
okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, 3.
I move to schedule a special town council meeting, if needed, on Friday, May 6th, 2016, in the Town Hall Council Chambers at 4:00 PM to approve the Town Council's 2016-17 second recommended budget.
Second.
Any discussion?
You remember that if the referendum's on Thursday night, if it fails, we have to meet on that Friday, May 6th, because then we have the second town meeting on the following Monday.
Any questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Okay?
Item N4, I move to accept the attached annual report for the town of Farmington.
Second.
Any comments?
This is our town annual report that we put together in our office. It's full of lots of information, but do remember, it's a year behind, so that sometimes gets confusing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just love this, because it's got so much information in it, about the town, so thank you very much, it's great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
I understand we're actually skipping item N5. Do I need to table that officially, or just?
No, you just don't
we're
take it up.
We're not going to take it up. All right, moving on.
And 5 will probably be back at the next meeting.
Okay.
All right. Item N6, I move to appoint the accounting firm of Bloom Shapiro and Company, P.C. of West Hartford, Connecticut, as the town's independent auditor for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2016.
Second.
Any question, Kathy?
Just as you remember that we have a 5-year contract. This is year 5 of the 5-year contract.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
All right. N7, I move to approve the attached Americans with Disabilities Act policy and grievance procedure.
Second.
Kathy?
You'll see items N7, N8, N9, N10, N11 all have to do with fair housing, and April is Fair Housing Month, and we update all of our policies during that time. So we have not made any changes to the policies, but it's just good practice that the council reapproves them every April. So that's what for all the items N7 through N11.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
Okay, N8, I move to adopt the following fair housing resolution for the town of Farmington and to authorize the town manager to sign and distribute said resolution.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
Okay, N9, I move to adopt the attached affirmative action plan for the town of Farmington.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
N10, I move to adopt the following compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 statement for the town of Farmington, and to authorize the town manager to sign and distribute said resolution.
Second.
Questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
N11, I move to adopt the following fair housing policy statement for the town of Farmington, and to authorize the town manager to sign and distribute said resolution.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
Okay, N12, I move to change the location of the April 26, 2016 Town Council meeting from the Town Council chambers to the Board of Education conference room.
Second.
As you know, it's the primary, and the registrar of voters like to use this room. So we're going to go to the Board of Ed conference room, which actually will probably work out nice for us because we're going to do the web page, and they have the nice screen and everything. So I think that will work out. So we'll move to the conference room.
Great. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Okay.
Okay, N13, I move to abate the taxes due on October 1st, 2014 grand list for the property known as 70 Mountain Road. We're abating, okay.
Second.
And remind me, Joe, because I get myself confused on this. We're abating the taxes to ourselves.
Right.
Correct? Remember, we've had this before, because we
have this conversation every year.
time, yeah. We own the property now, but because of that, so we don't tax ourselves for it. So, but you have to formally do an item.
Okay, any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
N14, I move to approve the following property tax refunds.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Okay, can I have a motion to move to oh, you say it.
I can do that.
Yes, sorry.
I move to adjourn to executive session to discuss matters concerning the sale or acquisition of real property, and that attendance in the executive session shall be limited to members of the town council and the town manager at 9:47 PM.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions. Okay, thank you.